Okay, so we just had some huge Phase 4 news dropped on us. And, you know, within the information that we got, there's so much to talk about, guys, and we'll see how we go. I don't want to do it all today. We might sort of divvy this up into a part one, part two. But we really need to probably kick off with the most important news of the day that we got, which was Bronny James being drafted by the Los Angeles Lakers at the number 55 slot to play with his dad, LeBron. Guys, can we get some thoughts on this? That's what we're here to talk about, right?
Ooh, as someone from Akron, it's weird them not being in Cleveland, but I'm not a huge basketball fan, but that is kind of odd to me.
I will just say, I liked the conspiracy that's getting thrown around when the draft started by someone on Twitter going, I can bet on Bronny James to go to every team except for Cleveland at the number 20 slot. I wonder what's going on there. But obviously turns out there was no grand conspiracy. And I don't know. I got a text from a friend, another Lakers fan. I'm a Lakers fan if you guys don't know. Got a text from another Lakers fan this morning going like, geez, I don't know about this Bronny pick. And I'm like, look, it's the number 55 pick at the tail end of the second round. It's a throwaway pick. You know, just think of it as trading for LeBron's happiness from a nothing slot that never, pans out 0.1% of the time. How about all this sports talk, guys? I'm loving it. All right, fine. We'll talk about World of Warcraft, I guess. North, I'm guessing you don't have strong feelings on the 2024 NBA draft?
I'm not really a sports ball guy. The only sport that I watched is fencing at the Summer Olympics.
Fair enough. You people don't know you're an accomplished fencer.
Do people not know that? I used to talk about this. I guess I haven't streamed in years and years. So you know what? You're not wrong. You're not wrong. People have forgotten about how quickly we forget.
I know.
How quickly.
But thank you for being here, mate. Look, we've got a lot to talk about, and I'll be getting you to lead us off very soon. We'll just introduce everyone else. Arcos, sweetheart, welcome back.
Hi, thanks. Always a surprise that you get back on the show.
Oh, mate, I mean, I surprise myself every time I ask you back as well. But here we are. Galley boy, mate, good to see you.
Yo.
And Jack T. Blade, welcome back. Always a pleasure to get you on the show, mate.
Well, thanks, bud. Yeah, I'm shocked at my Mavericks drafting another guy from Germany.
All right, here we go, guys. Sorry about the Twitch notifications that you'll hear as well. They're a bit loud. I should turn them down. Sorry, everyone who's listening to the podcast proper. All right, North, let's tee you up. We did get a lot of information. This was the hot, steamy dump that we were kind of waiting for Phase 4. And boy, did it have some stuff to chew on contained within it. Rather nutty, if you will. Now, look, I feel like, sorry to get gross off the bat, but look, how do you want to do this? I feel like we would be remiss not to talk about the one point that everyone is now rumbling about from this post about the double lockout within the week. So if you haven't heard, guys, if you haven't read the blue post, lots of information there. Please go check it out. But the big juicy morsel was that you will be raiding. Well, you won't be raiding, but you can raid if you want twice a week. There'll be 2 lockouts per week, and that's just how it's going to be unless something changes due to feedback. North, to set you up, this won't surprise people. I have no strong feelings one way or another. I'm using this conversation that we're having right now to sway me. I'm here for the taking, you guys. Tip me to your argument. I see positives and negatives on both sides, and I don't know which way to fall. North, I don't know which way you fall on this one. Tell me, what's the deal?
For this phase, I have no issue with it. There's not going to be that many raids. Like for this portion of this phase, I think it actually provides some content. And realistically, what it means is just 2 days of raiding a week. It's not the old system of the 3 days. Like they've reduced the pain point because it now resets on, my understanding is Tuesday and Saturday. I could have read that wrong. But my understanding was Tuesday and Saturday. So I don't think that that's that big of a deal. I think that that's fine. I worry about it later down the line. I worry about it when we have ZG open, we have BWL open. They said every SoD raid will follow this schedule. As much as people, and you were saying this before, hey, just get off the wheel. People hate that. People hate that. They want it. They don't want to be gate kept away from more gear by time. They want to be on the same playing field as everyone else. This has always been the case. This is why that like the sort of the model of the hard modes is a little bit less favorable, and you see when bosses can't be killed, like Vash and KT for instance, the raiding population goes wildly low because people don't like being gate kept away from stuff. Is this that big of an issue early on? I don't think so, but later on you're gonna have to deal with that. Okay, we're gonna have to sack some days here. We're gonna have to do less, but that's kind of what people were doing early on in SoD anyway. I think people just might have to start getting comfortable with just rotting some lockouts. It won't really matter, especially if you're a more hardcore group. It says the heat levels will give you more gear, so it probably is the case that this gear and these dungeons will become irrelevant to anything other than alts pretty quickly if you're doing double lockouts.
Okay.
So we'll have to get our hands on it, is my opinion on this. It depends on how quickly these things become irrelevant. But I worry about later on unless they do become irrelevant, and I worry also just because players often will not listen to their own good sense. Players will min-max the fun out of the game for themselves really often, so I worry about that happening. Maybe they've balanced it in a way that's effective, and it won't be an issue. But yeah, once you've got ZG out, once you've got AQ out, plus you have these world bosses that you're doing every single week, on Lockout, so there's going to be a lot of stuff to do as BWL releases, as ZG releases, later down the line, as the new raids are releasing. I think that could be an issue.
Okay.
But early on, I think it's fine. If they remove it after the first phase, if it's like MC's no longer out and it's like BWL, MC, and ZG, and then they back off from it and they say, hey, it's once a week again, I think that actually would just be fine.
Okay.
I don't know that they'll do that though, because they said, hey, this is going to be the way it's going to work. So
I'm kind of going to jump in. I'm going to kind of just stay out of this one and let you guys ping pong between each other. Manny, jump in. Hey, mate.
Hey, yeah, just word for word, they said phase 4. They didn't clarify the rest of the raids moving forward. They said only for phase 4. Yeah. Now they left it open-ended. It could be the case for the rest of the raids. If that is the case, I think that would be an issue. But they did specifically just say phase 4 in the video.
I think they're going to look at the reception that comes out from the player base as to how they handle BWL and ZG, because BWL and ZG should come out together rather than a staggered release like in Classic, because it is a seasonal server. So that could oversaturate the population with raids if they keep it on the 2-day.
Let me, Arcos, I'm going to throw it to you, but just before I do, I want to get one last little salvo from North, and then Manny, I might fire you up after Arcos. North, I wouldn't say I'm surprised by the divisiveness of this, issue. What would you have to say to people who are like apoplectic about this?
I think a lot of people, their first response to this is Blizzard doesn't understand the plight of the earlier, the earlier phases. They don't get it. How could they do this again? They don't understand. I think that as much as I see why people think this, it is just more content, and there is going to be more stuff for you to be doing, and like you're going to want to get that gear faster early on. If you want to really engage with SoD, it gives you more raids to do early on, and they've reduced the biggest pain point, which was the every 3 days. Every 3 days is awful. That is the biggest problem with the 3-day lockout, is that it's not consistent, and then it falls on a different day each time. So your raid schedule has to adapt, or you'll eventually start to lose lockouts. You can't do the Monday, Tuesday every single time. Right, you have to do random days, and sometimes there will be 3 raids in a week, and that sucks. That super sucks compared to a system where it's consistently resetting. So they've reduced that pain point, and if they just keep it in for this phase, and I think it based on what we were just sort of brought up to speed with, it seems like they're only planning on doing this, or at least have only stated their intentions to do this for phase 4. I think it's fine. I think the content with what they've been cooking up, especially with what a lot of the trinkets that you've been seeing, a lot of little doodads and the heat level, I think this is going to make for an interesting raid. I think people are going to want to do more of it, especially if there's a new boss. I hope that it will be good, and then people will just be really excited about it. And they, I think, also have stated their intentions to not make this a particularly long phase either. So I think that people would be more frustrated by not having gear going into the next phase than they will be by doing 1 extra raid a week. It's really not that bad for scheduling, given that it's consistent now. I think it will be fine, so long as it doesn't carry forward later on.
Okay, Arcos, that's the first salvo from maybe I guess you'd call it team cool your jets. I don't know, but I do understand why people are upset. You, I think, are one of those people. To be fair, I think to be fair to you, Arcos, you've said something along the lines of what North alluded to just then about the whole sort of let's wait and see. This might be pending on rewards and whatnot that we don't know about yet. But Arcos, now that you've heard what North has to say, tell me your thoughts on the issue and anything you want to throw out there, but then anything in response to what North said too.
Yeah, this makes me quite apprehensive. This reminds me, or like in person reminds me, it gives me PTSD of how Trial of the Grand Crusader and the Trial of the Crusader worked in Wrath of Lich King original. If you have the chance of getting more loot, if you are edging towards min-maxing or you are min-maxing completely, you're going to make that decision. You're going to go for it, no matter if you need to do something like retail where they raid 6 days a week, or if you need to do one raid a week like we did in 2019 and 2020. So I think there are two kind of polar opposites, and both of them I am apprehensive of. As someone who likes to min-max and compete, I am worried about the schedule and pace of raiding, because when you're trying to be competitive, you don't just have a main character. Like, you have a clone. Maybe you have two clones. You have an alt. You have an alternate alt. So for a very, very small subsection of the player base that want to be at the very top, you might be looking at 4, 6, 8 raids per week, which is a lot, and it's not sustainable for a lot of people. So we will see people drop out of that if that becomes the norm, and that decreases participation, which I am against. But on the complete other side, I think what are the casuals going to do? Like, do they have time to do a Molten Core run that takes them an hour to prepare for, or 30 minutes to prepare for, an hour and a half, 2 hours to finish, and then go to world bosses? Like, they won't have min-maxed movement, so maybe it takes them a little bit longer to move in between. Do they have the time to do that twice a week? Like, it remains to be seen, right? Because we don't know how difficult the raids are going to be. But I think this can very easily create significant pain points both for top-end players and for average players.
Manny, sorry to say you, Manny, or Sildra?
Sildra.
Oh, Sildra, go for it, mate.
Yeah, so my two problems with this are mainly the days. Tuesday and Saturday feel like really kind of awkward points. I feel like the day really should just be in the smack middle of it, and it should be Wednesdays were set so you can raid on Tuesday and Thursday, which is what a ton of casual guilds do. Having the option to have, those normal raid days stay intact would be pretty big. And then my second point was going to be the new cadence of world buffs, which is going to be, Dire Maul, there's going to be Dragon Slayer, there's going to be Rend, and then, am I missing something? I feel like I'm missing something.
The new Ani buff.
Songflower. And, the new Ani buff is just
it's just Rend, yeah. There's Ani, Rend, Songflower. And
yeah, Songflower is what I was missing. But my point is that's going to be, a ton of time, especially with, Dire Maul buffs. That's obviously super toxic a lot of the times, because if you ever get caught out in any situations, there's possible like dispelling and all that kind of stuff. So I'd really love to see them address the dispelling meta as well. Just because if we're going to be buffing more, we have to have a little bit more, PvP me for sure, but don't just like res and dispel me. That's garbage. So, that's where I'm at with it.
All right. Manny, I might throw it to you. Like I said, I'm sort of just playing more moderator here, guys, and I'm not going to get as involved because I don't want to upset anyone, because I'm not much of a raider, and this is more for you guys to feel passionately about than me. Manny, I believe you were, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember now. I thought you were pro the decision, but correct me if that's not the case. I'll just say
No,
one thing.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So now that Arcos has said his piece, sort of in the anti-crowd, we'll jump back to the pro crowd. I'll just say this one little bit of commentary. I don't even know if this is, true or not. It's something that I believe in my gut because I am a casual. When I hear Arcos, when I hear you say, what the fuck are the casuals going to do? Won't, it's the old Maud Flanders. Won't somebody think of the casuals? Like, I'm a casual, and all I can tell you is, look, maybe this, I can only speak for me, but I just would have thought that many casuals felt the same way. If I miss lockouts, I don't give a fuck. I missed lots of lockouts in phase 1 and 2. I don't care. When I play games like Final Fantasy 14 that have like what Kata has with weekly caps with, Valor points or whatnot. If I don't cap out for the week, I don't care. Like, I'm a casual. I shrug my shoulders and go, oh, well, guess I'll fucking move on and just do whatever because I'm a casual. I don't give a shit. But anyway, we'll get back to that, Arcos. Manny,
can I reply to that feeling of yours?
No, I hate you. Yeah, of course. Go for it.
I think you are in a very unique position because you have, to my knowledge, not been in a guild for a very long time. You raided with someone in Wrath. I don't think you raided.
I had a guild in SoD. I had a guild in SoD up until 2 months ago.
Yeah. So in Wrath a little bit, and then in Season of Discovery as well. I think most casuals who or median, average, whatever term you want to use, who are actively raiding with a guild, those are the people that will have scheduling issues or like content amount issues. The people who only raid with pugs whenever they feel like it, who might not be able to be with a group every one day of a week, like on a Saturday, those people doesn't really matter, right? Because it's not fair. Different for them to lose a reset.
That's fair. We might just have different definitions of casual here.
Sure, and it's very difficult to call the term casual for everyone. But I think the issue for people a lot in phase 3 was that their average guild, their casual guild, was hemorrhaging players because they felt the phase wasn't exciting or fun enough. They didn't have enough to do, right? Those are the ones that will now, I think, maybe, but remains to be seen, they will hemorrhage people because there's too much things to do. They won't have ready replacement when someone says, hey guys, like I can't commit to 2 days a week forever, right? So they'll just be in a similar position of missing raiders because they don't have those who can say, yeah, I can raid every Tuesday, every Saturday, or every Wednesday, every Sunday, like 100% attendance on the clock. I think that's the issue they will run into.
I hear you, and I do sympathize with that because, like I said, it's just us sort of maybe cutting off on the definition of casual at a certain point where I'm like, well, if you're in a guild that's going to be like, okay, there's 2 raid lockouts, we now expect you to be at every one of those, and you say yes to that proposition, I sort of say you are now no longer a casual. Yeah, you are now no longer a casual. Whereas the casual player will hear that demand from their GM and say, fuck that, I don't want to raid twice a week. I don't even take this shit that seriously. That's when they kind of put their hands up and out themselves as a bit more of a casual player because they just don't give a shit about missing lockouts. Manny, let me throw it over to you, mate. Go nuts.
Yeah, I think you kind of you guys both kind of hit it well. It's just I think that there's going to be a bit of a ripping of the Band-Aid off for some people here. There's going to be some people that are like, what side of the fence do I sit on? Do I sit on the side of the fence where I need to hit every single lockout? I need to min-max. I need to clear all these dungeon bosses for my currency. If that's what makes me happy in the game, I might need to find a group where that is what they prioritize as well. And there's a lot of people, I've seen it already in the Crusader Strike Discord, where people are just looking for a once a reset guild already. They're like, we raiding Kata, we can only commit once a week.
Yeah.
We're just going to look for a guild where that's the priority. And there might be some people who, for a long time, maybe since 2019, maybe only recently, they've been, somebody who believes that they're a more hardcore player, but they're like, you know what, I can't do this twice a week. I'll just have to be fine doing once a week, and they'll have to rip that Band-Aid off and have some growing pains with something like that. I think that that's kind of what we're looking at here. It is tough. You're going to have some people who dislike it and push back against it. I think that for a phase, though, that like North alluded to, and I think this is a pretty key point, that this looks like it's going to be a pretty short phase. I think they said a few weeks initially when they were talking about BWL being after.
They did, yeah.
Yeah.
They did.
I think that having a bit of a rush where you're just like, okay, I'm going to clear these raids twice a week, or if you choose not to, just clearing it once a week. I think that's kind of a pretty key point here. And I think them specifically saying just phase 4 for this cadence of 2 resets a week, I think that's pretty key as well. I think when they add more raid content, I believe that they will adjust it back to a weekly cadence. So I don't know. It's there's going to be people who initially push back against it. I think they just need to kind of evaluate where they're at, where their guild is at, and make a decision. And I think that having the option for a lot of people to clear this raid twice a week on one character is going to be just like awesome. It's going to be super fun. They're going to be able to get more loot quicker, and they're going to be able to be ready to roll into BWL or whatever else comes after that in a shorter time frame, which is kind of what the seasonal server is about.
Okay.
And I think a final point, I guess, is that, and I know it's a bit of a meme, but I do believe they're testing something here. They're testing they initially tried the 3-day lockout. They found a pain point. They went to a weekly lockout. Now they're testing something different, which is a twice a week. And I think that the day might seem annoying to some people, but it's going to piss somebody off. There's always going to be some guild that gets hosed by, whatever day they choose for that midweek reset.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's where I'm at with it.
Can I?
I think it's
can I
Go ahead.
interject really fast?
We'll go forwarded, north, then creepy. Go for it, forwarded.
I think we're discounting a third tier of player, and that's the semi-hardcore.
Yeah.
Which I would classify myself and my guild as. We're going to do 2 days a week, but we're going to leave one of them as optional. And, if we have to fill with pugs or underperformers, we're going to step down a heat level. But for the most part, on that main raid night, we're going to go up the heat level. So I think we're saying that it's either one or the other when there's like 3 or 4 different tiers of players in SoD. There's the hardcore speedrun, got a min-max, really hyper competitive. There's the hyper casual that don't give a fuck and just raid whenever they can. And then there's a couple tiers in between, and I think that this multiple raid lockout is going to work for the majority of the player base.
I just think that this is going to spark some interesting discussions for guilds, and they're going to have to choose a direction. Like you said, you guys already have kind of looked at a second optional day. That has a lot of positives to it. Obviously, there's some pain there as well. I'm not saying that it's like perfect, but I think that this is going to create a lot of discussion. It's going to create a lot of, interesting new methods that people look at raiding, because this hasn't really been done before. If even in retail World of Warcraft, if I'm right. So I think
I like it. It gets people talking and it gets people engaged, and it makes them actually put forth effort to choose what they want to be.
Okay, North will
you
throw it
see the
over
same
to you.
thing with the world
then,
bosses.
Yep.
You see the exact same thing with the world bosses here, that they're allowing people to, they're saying, hey, it's tuned for 20 people. You could do it as 40 though. Like, they're really letting you choose what you want to do. Heat level is the same thing. I think there's some risk of mode fatigue. Like, I dislike when there's a bunch of difficulty modes and stuff, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later. I think that's one issue potentially, but like was just being said before, yeah, lower the heat level. It's the same gear. Yeah, you might get a little bit less, but if your guild's having a pain point, go get some pugs together, do the content. The content is designed to be, pretty easy, and I don't think Molten Core is going to be some exception to this. There's a reason why they're doing multiple modes here. It's so that the content is going to be super, super accessible to people that want to see it. And if the gear is exactly the same, yeah, you'll have a little bit less of it, but you can try harder, you can do more, you can come with more consumes, you can come more prepared, and then you're going to get more gear, but it's the same gear at the end of the day. So that's, that is a plus for the casuals. Then you can kind of just play how you want. I think it's really important to have that there. You can just do a high heat level. If you're like semi-hardcore and you want to do a high heat level and then pug another one, that works perfectly. You want to only do one a week because you don't super need the gear and care about the next phase because you don't need to go in and bleed in the next one. Sure, if you're hardcore and you want to run 2 a week on your 2 or 3 characters, great. I don't think that you need as much of a clone anymore now because you've got this 2 lockouts a week and you've got the extra from the heat lockout. So I don't even think the hardcore players are going to be all that pressed. I think, yeah, it'll be better if you have a clone, but you're going to have to raid a whole bunch a week if you really want to. But then you have that option. If you really want to be at the bleeding edge and you want to raid 8 to 10 times a week in this version of the game, it's available to you. It's probably not something that the vast majority of people should do, but basically no one is going to do that anyway, right? It's going to be probably less than 100 people who are realistically rating this 10 times a week because they've got a couple of different clones and they need their alts and they want them geared right like that. It's going to happen, but it's not going to be all that frequent because they want to make this more accessible, especially as a shorter phase. And also, I think something that's worth mentioning here is, right, they have these different difficulties. They want people to engage with these different difficulties. I think they want people to slowly ramp this stuff up. Best way of doing that in a way that doesn't feel really frustrating, I think, is by giving you a lot of gear to go forward. We saw this in Old War. Old War got remarkably easier because of how powerful that gear was. The part of the issue behind Old War, I think, and we talked about this, I don't know if it was on this show or another show, part of it was that gear was locked behind the hardest bosses. And so it was a little bit less accessible for casuals. Yes, the item level in general was upped, but it was less accessible, so you didn't get that gear curve as much. And so you had this dichotomy between the hardcore and the casual. Now you don't have that. You're going to have the same exact gear. So being able to do, even if it's on a lower heat level, 2 raids a week, if you want your guild to press into those other stuff, if the higher level, if the new boss, even if it's like cosmetic stuff that's dropping, is locked behind a higher heat mode and you want to do that and you want more gear and you want to progress together, they have a carrot for you. And that carrot is going to be helped by not just, oh, you have to do and play better. No, you're going to get gear, so it's going to make it easier. So you get the natural RPG progression of, hey, your spreadsheet looks better, your math is mathing better. You get to walk in and be more powerful, which everyone loves. At the end of the day, everyone likes being powerful. Everyone likes being stronger. And I think that this feeds into that, especially given that I think that we're all on the same page. I think it is just going to be this phase. I think it's because there is going to be so little content here, and they don't want what happened with Sunken Temple, and they also want to see what's going to happen. This was mentioned before. They want to see, hey, is the 3-day lockout the pain point, or is it twice a week, right? Because now we have a different thing. The 3-day lockout is a pain point. Everyone bitches about it. Everyone says it, but it's really hard to see exactly how a player is going to interact with something before they do. Right? Before you see the dynamics, because there are tons and tons of people who play this game and they play it really, really remarkably differently. So until we see what the players do with their hands on it, how they really interact with it, how the gear drops look, what the volume of these items looks like, and how difficult the content, how engaging the content is, it's a difficult equation to solve. It is a really difficult equation to solve, and I laud them for trying new stuff. This is the only way we move forward, right? If they just throw the same formula the entire time, and people throw their hands up, they're like, oh, game's dead, game sucks, this, that, and the other. I would rather Blizzard try and fail than not try at all.
Let me jump in, guys. I'm going to have to flex my moderation muscle with so many of you being here now, and thank you to all of you amazing guys for jumping in. It's so great to see so many people wanting to chime in on this one. Arcos was kind enough just to send me an update from Aggrend just a couple of minutes ago, and I'll read this one out to you guys verbatim. It's a short one. He just says, greetings. We wanted to just take a quick moment to let you know that we've seen a lot of feedback on this feature, and we are discussing it as a team. We have quite a lot going on right now to prepare for Phase 4, including getting the next round of class changes out on the PTR, but we hope to sit down and talk more about this with you very soon. In the meantime, just know that we hear your concerns on this. We'd encourage you to continue to provide feedback, but please keep your discussions civil, and remember that we all want the same thing: for the game to be fun and engaging, and for you to have a lot of content to enjoy should you choose to. So I think that sort of highlights that, number one, nothing is ever set in stone, guys. They are opening their ears and listening to feedback. And number two, conversations like the fucking one we're having right now are so important to have your voice heard, and the devs do check in and read the forums and listen to this stuff and make their minds up based off of that. So Arcos, thanks for sending that along. I just want to get some of the voices out there that we haven't heard from yet, if that's okay, so we don't get too much of the same people. Look Alive, Uncle Creepy, Wonder, and Selly and Zim. I'll get to all of you guys. And Gally. Look, I'll just yell out first and foremost, any of you guys yell out, is there anyone else here who's in the anti-2 lockouts per week crowd from the names I just mentioned?
I'm not.
Go creepy.
Go
Sorry,
it,
go for it, creepy.
I was gonna say I'm not necessarily particularly against it, but I think it'll be very hard to do effectively because it's kind of a change that when I saw it, I immediately thought, who is this for? There's been a lot of things and a lot of debate about the PTR and the things they were testing, and just throughout the course of the rating the last three phases, more raid going back to a higher cadence is not something that I've heard anybody of any play level ask or inquire about something they wanted to do. So it was a change that I like I said, I don't really get who it's for and who's asking for this. I think
can give you a guess on that.
Go, Wonder. What's your guess? So sorry, one sec. Creepy, finish off, then Wonder.
I think it can be good, but they've made it very alt friendly, and this kind of is a replacement factor for that. You're not going to be raiding on a bunch of alts with a much faster cadence. As long as they keep the phases relatively short, I think it will hold people of all levels interest, and especially if they can do the different hard modes in a manner that keeps people happy with them. So the higher end guilds stay happy, the lower end guilds stay happy. And if we're talking about 4 and 6 week phases essentially for raiding, that's not that bad. But if we start getting back to 8, 10, 12 weeks, by week 7, people are going to be real tired of the raiding content and not want to be doing it.
All right, Wonder, jump in, mate.
So I think the 2 lockouts a week is a direct change as a result of the feedback that was provided to them throughout phase 1 and 2, which was 3 days is a nightmare. We'd prefer either what they're offering now, 2 days a week, or dropping down to 1. One of the other big sticking points is the argument around 10, 20, 40-man raiding content. And particularly if you were to do 40-man raids, there's not enough loot that drops from the raids to quickly gear out everybody. And so part of my thinking is that the reason of increasing the amount of raids that you do and also adding in these different difficulty levels is to supplement that pain point so that when and if, and I'll use if cautiously, we do move to a 40-man raid, there is a system in place that everybody is used to that's going to facilitate all 40 people getting gear relatively quickly. Which is one of those big sticking points that people would say, hang on a second, I don't really want to do 40-man raiding because if there's only going to be 2 items that drop per boss and 3 on the last one or 4 on the last one, that's not going to be enough. Okay. So I think that's part of the reason as to why this is shifting or becoming a feature.
Too easy. Forward. John, I'll throw it over to you guys. By the way, I am directing, certain questions to certain people, but if you really have something you have to chime in on in reaction to what you've heard, we're all mates here, we're all at the pub, just shout out and it's all good. But John,
I do have like a 10-second blurb that I think would be relevant. I think someone was asking before, who's asking for this? Even if no one's asking for it, I think it's the developer's job to understand what we want before we want it. A good example of this that I see, like this is like a weird example. Like whenever there are changes randomly to my iPhone, like whenever features are introduced to my iPhone, I'm not sitting there. I don't think beforehand, ooh, I really need X thing. Like not since probably like the iPhone 8 have I really been like, ooh, there's a really big pain point here. They just introduce stuff that I don't know that I want, that I end up wanting. And it's the dev's job to know that. It's the dev's job to understand what we want and understand, hey, 3-day lockout's really painful. Ooh, there's not enough content in this SoD Sunken Temple once a week phase. There might be a solution for it that people aren't asking for, that people aren't sitting there and being like, yeah, let's do this. That could be the answer, right? So no one was asking for heat levels, and we got heat levels. I don't think anyone was asking for a secret boss. We got a secret boss. No one was asking for badges of justice. We get badges of justice essentially from these dungeons. And so it's not up to us to ask every time, because if it were, right, like Blizzard could just listen to the feedback, that we give and just, implement everything and the game would be perfect, but it's not. The feedback is very, very different. People often don't know what they want. Even if some people know what they want, it's not the same across the board. So creating a game this big and pleasing as many people as they're trying to please and making a good experience, I think they have to do things where no one's asking for it. It's on them. They're the professionals. They're trying to innovate. They're trying to, solve a problem that, essentially in WoW has never really been solved. So I think that is important to keep in mind when we're talking about things that no one is, more or less asking for. I agree. No one asked for this. But it might be the right call. We'll have to see.
You think you do, but you don't.
But that's the thing. Here's the thing about that. That was said in a very in the thing about people that actually people did want that thing. But oftentimes people don't know what they want. They think that they want something and they don't.
We've covered it. I'm with you.
North, I'm fucking with you.
The J. Allen Brack line, we've deciphered over the years on the podcast. I'm with you, North.
I've talked about it 1,000 times.
I know. It's a really interesting conversation.
I agree with it, just not there.
No, I know. It's go back and listen to old episodes of Countdown if you want some good analysis of that line. But anyway, John, let me throw it over to you. Mate, you wanted to add a couple of things to the equation.
Yeah, I mean, like the biggest issue that I have with this is one, it feels like disrespectful if you've been a community leader or a guild leader, because they continue to change some of the rules. Like first it was 10-man, then it moved to 20-man, and now it's going to be like, oh well, this is normally a 7-day week. Now it's going to be every 3 days. So you're now having to go with the roster that you have, and you're trying to ask people to adjust their schedules to find out, well, are you going to be able to fit on my team, or are you going to be playing somewhere else? That's just one. That's a minor issue. The other big issue that I have is, let's say somebody on your team wants to take a vacation in August. And I know that you were talking about how it's not a big deal that you're missing a lockout, but in this instance, I think it's a much bigger deal than you think. If it's going to last 4 or 5 weeks, you go out of town, you're expecting Friday. So you're going to miss your Saturday lockout. You're going to miss Tuesday. You're going to miss Friday. And then if you're lucky, you come back Sunday, go to work on Monday. And then, oh yeah, well, I guess I should, I have to get another one done, or I'm going to wind up missing 4 lockouts. And that's, to me, is outrageous, because I know somebody said compared it to retail, but it's nothing like retail, because retail, you get so much power very quickly. And your power creep in Classic is a little bit slower. So you missing 2 weeks out of a 4-week cycle you are extremely behind.
That's a very fair point. I hadn't thought of that. That's great of you to raise, John. Hey, Zim, Gally, and Selly, we'll start up with you guys. Out of you 3, is there anyone who's pro 2 lockouts a week?
I love it.
Gally, you love it? Hit me.
Sorry, that was Zim,
was it? Or Selly, it was Selly. Selly, you there?
It wasn't me.
Yeah, I'm here, bro.
You love it. Tell us why.
Hold on, I was getting out of the noisy area.
You're right. Tell us why you love it.
So, I mean, I got a couple things, right? Like going back to that point where he's feeling like he's behind. I was behind quite a bit in phase 3, but I'm telling you right now, man, like being behind 4 lockouts is not necessarily a bad thing, because you can come back and you can get gear really quick. Because a lot of people will be doing those lockouts already got the gear by the time you get back from your vacation. So that's my point on that. And that's coming from experience, right? Like I took a break at the beginning of phase 3, came back after all the data mining for P4, and I got my characters geared up really quick. And my rogue got like almost full bis in like 1 or 2 lockouts. So
well, that's just it. I think Season Discovery is really just meant to be accessible to all types of players. Yeah, it hurts when you miss a lockout, but if you step away from the game and you're coming back for P4, it's going to be easy to catch up and actually play and be in that higher tier realm or whatever.
Yeah, and then okay, so on my other point on, I didn't ask for this, but I love it in the regards that I live in a different time zone than my guild because of my life situation, right? It's not really my choice. And being that way, having 2 chances a week to actually raid with my guild as opposed to having the pug every single time, it's actually a godsend for me. Because now I might not be able to play with them on Tuesday, but I can definitely raid with them on Saturday. So for me, that's a win. I didn't ask for it, but I'm glad that it's happening.
Okay.
Now, I can see how on the other spectrum, like if you're a speed runner or you're, a super competitive guild, parsing, all that stuff, every lockout does matter. However, that's the minority of the player base. It sucks to say,
even for
but
that, I was just to chime in as a person in that in that specific circumstance. I was one of the I don't know what we got. We get world third for Sunken Temple. I was the first 40 on Earth in that phase, and then I immediately quit. I got to 40 Nomer. I did Nomer. We had some issues with some disconnections, like one of our members getting banned, so we did pretty poorly that phase. I then quit. I was like, hey, I got stuff to do. I got C++ to learn. I'm trying to do more stuff in Unreal. I'm trying to make a game. I don't have time to raid Nomer twice a week. I'm not going to do that, and I didn't. And then I came back 2 weeks before the phase, and I got everything in 2 weeks. Obviously, it wouldn't have really mattered if I didn't get everything either, because the gear doesn't super matter. The fights aren't that hard. The game's not that difficult for the super hardcore anyway. So I came back like 2 weeks before, and it was fine. It was completely fine. Missing an entire phase, and I'm one of the most hardcore players in World of Warcraft, right? Like I was co-GM for a very long time of now what is the best guild in NA. I'm still an officer in that guild. Right, like we are, we were the first NA guild in SoD, and we're gonna do it again, right? Like it's even for us, there are a lot of versions of World of Warcraft. Sometimes you got to step back. You can't play every single version. You can't be doing 7 GDKPs in Kata every single week and then do 15 SoD. It just, sometimes you got to pick here or there. It's not that serious. It's a game. It's fun to be able to have stuff to do, and be able to like take breaks and take step backs from the game, take breaks and take a step back, because it is so easy to get this gear at the end of the day, and it looks like they're doing the same thing in Molten Core. They're making it really accessible, especially when you get these heat levels. I anticipate we're going to just be flooded with gear, right? Someone said it earlier. Yeah, you can come back a couple weeks before. You will be able to. Everyone will have the gear, and people will still want to do the content. Maybe they're not doing it twice a week, but then the pugs hopefully are going to be flowing because there's so many more options. I think a lot of people are going to do one run with a guild a week and then do one pug on the weekend, and which is why I think, to be honest, I think they should bring back GDKPs. I think this is a perfect format for GDKPs. Do a GDKP over the weekend, raid with your guild in the week. I think that would be
get
perfect.
me fucking started.
You're gonna
I think that would be so good. I think that would be so good.
If you
bring them back, let the people come through, let the people play how they want to play. And the weekend raids, the weekend GDKPs will be glorious.
Couldn't disagree more. If you've seen me, I got in a huge fight with a good friend last night in the Discord over this very issue. I'm not going to get into it again. I promise that I've got in 2 massive fights with friends over the last 2 nights in the Discord, and I promise that I will scale things back a little bit. So while I disagree with you, North, I'm not going to get into it. Zim, can you just finish off?
Because you're terrified. It's all right. It's all right.
You idiot. Zim, can I throw it back to you?
Yeah, no, North hit it right on the head, right? This version of Warcraft is not like super competitive, looking for all the mythic. There's tons of stuff to do for every type of player, and I think that's exactly what they're aiming for. So with the 2 lockouts per week, they're learning, they're testing. That's all Season of Discovery is. It's in the damn name. They're trying to discover new ways to play the game, which they're successfully doing, whether or not the player base likes it or not. The player base is always going to be pissed off at something.
Now I just want to throw it over to Gally, mate. Sorry, lucky last. You've heard everything you've heard. Round us out, and then we're going to kind of open it up to the floor.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think the choice is good. I'm of the opinion that you don't have to do every lockout. And I think if they do the heat levels to where you're getting the same gear but more of it, they may even, again, we don't know what this is going to bring. So it could be, a heat level 3 or whatever the highest is similar to if you did the base level twice. So maybe your guild runs in, knocks out a heat level 3, and you dedicate that as your guild night, and you say, hey, optional pug on Saturday night. We'll try and do a guild run, but if you can't, go pug it if you want. But you don't have that expectation. Now, of course, the sweaties are gonna do, their guilds will set it up to, hey, these are the 2 nights we're running. We're gonna do 3s, and cool. They're gonna do that regardless, right? So I think the choice is good.
Okay.
Let people play how they want to play, unless it's a GDKP, right?
I agree. But, oh my god, we the both sides of the argument on that one trigger each other so much. But anyway, Arcos, here's what we'll do. I know you'll have a lot to say in regards to everything you've just heard over the last 20 minutes, but guys, I'm going to open it up to the floor a bit more now. Arcos will kick us off, and I don't want to talk about this topic all night. I do want to. There's so much to talk about, and it's fucked because. Like, I don't want to do this topic dirty, but we do have so much to get to. But Arcos, start off the round table, rebut back with anything you might want to hit up there, and we'll talk amongst ourselves.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing to me how many people think the player base is just going to be fine with missing raid resets. Like, yeah, there will be people who are fine with it. People that play like Josh, people that play, in different time zones or are in a circumstance where they don't commit to a guild or don't have the time for that. Like, those people exist for sure. But for everyone who is in a guild, or for most people who are in a guild or in a maybe have been there for a few months now. Maybe some of those guilds have been around for years. I don't really see that them just making a conscious decision like, yeah, we're just going to be a one raid a week type of guild where that's tenable. I might completely be wrong, of course, but we are talking about a community that, in Wrath, rogues just re-rolled Troll because it was a 1% DPS increase, even though for them as an individual player, that made no difference in their own performance. Like, I don't know. There are people who will chase the meta without ever needing it because they aren't in the top 0.1%. Like, they are miles away, but they still follow the meta for whatever reason, right? Okay. I really don't see where they just make that decision. I'll clap back at myself here. I think maybe this could be the spawn of pug communities like Discords that have, a raid every single day of the week, and you can just sign up to whatever suits you. But I've not seen that so far in Season of Discovery compared to like classic TBC, Wrath, etc.
So something like maybe a raid where, when you go, you get money
with the same
real,
like dedication and administration.
Yeah, so you get real world dollars. You're saying, North, something about real world dollars.
Exactly. Should we just introduce
a reason, an incentive for the organizers?
We're not doing the fucking GDKP argument, you bastards.
And then you sell that to your raiders.
No. I wasn't gonna go to the GDKP just. I was just gonna go straight to the PayPal. I think this, like, for me, like, right now, selling items is definitely on the menu. Like, it's on the table that you tell a person like, hey, you've been away. Yeah, sure. What gear do you want? Oh, I want this all this melee gear. Like, yeah, sure. You'll pay for it when it drops, and you have a spot in the raid until it drops because we're gonna be doing so many raids anyway.
All right, let me. That just GDKP under another name, which is a ticket run.
The old ticket runs, right? Yeah, North knows about the ticket runs.
But maybe just with PayPal instead of gold, because they're
checking
for gold, but they're not checking for PayPal, right?
Surely somebody joins the guild and gets a full set of gear in one day, and that doesn't look suspicious.
Anyway, North, didn't you have the greatest ticket run of all time once or something back in TBC? Didn't you have a great ticket run or something?
No, we didn't do ticket runs back in BBC. Polar's actually doing ticket runs right now in Kata, like, to a lot of success. In just because the content's a little bit harder, right? And obviously GDKPs aren't banned, and they do run GDKPs as well. But the idea is that a lot of the main splits have just sort of portioned out into, they'll throw in like one buyer a week, and that way with the volume of raids, there'll be pieces that those people don't need, and there are a lot of pieces people don't need anyway. So they throw in one buyer a week for, to the tune of like 800,000 gold, and you get everything relevant to your class for that week. But the content's hard, right? It's hard to kill Sinestra. It's hard to, it's hard to kill Neff. And it's going to be harder moving forward killing Rag. So that kind of thing, I think, is more relevant when the content's harder. I don't think that that's going to be a thing at all, given the fact that you can just do pugs with 20 people at heat level 1, maybe res items if you really want them. You know, like, yeah, you can come back and PayPal people. I don't think that that will be to any real volume, given that you can just pug this stuff. You know, but I could be a little bit out of touch. It'll depend on how hard the content is when we get our hands on it. But based on what we've seen so far and based on how they approached you know, the various raids and how they were tuned, as well as the amount, like the enormous amount of player power that we're gaining between this phase and the next phase, I think that it'll be extremely accessible. Okay. I don't think that we'll have any issues at all.
Let me throw it over to the two new guys who have joined us. We've got some Countdown rookies here, guys. Kef, Mandalore, thank you so much for jumping in. I'm not sure if you wanted to speak. I've sort of dragged you in here from the crowd, as I do. Have you guys heard something during this chat that you'd love to sound off on?
Not just yet. I just popped in, so I got to listen to you guys for a little bit first.
All good, Kev. How about you, Mandalore?
Yeah, morning, boys. Yeah, it looks like Aggrend's already started to message White the comments on the forums about backflipping potentially on the 2 weekly lockouts. So, I guess watch your space.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be like, you know, the first time we've seen something like that. Typically when you get a really visceral reaction from the community on as contentious an issue as this, you know, they are willing to go like, you know what, we had this idea, we'll scrap it before we even bring it out. It's happened before.
We always had the 3 days, G, stuff like that. Going back to something, I guess, more traditional, don't see the issue with that.
Yeah.
Especially with some of the struggles it's had jumping from 10 men up to 20, the die-off that happened during phase 3. You start to push people to raid 4 nights a week. Yeah, could be a strain there, I guess, for smaller guilds.
Too easy. All right, everyone, jump in. Anyone who wants to say anything, go nuts.
Sorry, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that kind of reference to phase 3 there. I think a big issue with phase 3 was the fact that we only had 1 raid to do a week. And I think that would be exacerbated even further in phase 4 here, where we've got a 1 week lead up to the world bosses and a 2 week lead up for dungeon gear and stuff like that, reps, you know, to MC itself. If we only had MC and the 3 1 boss raids once a week, and assuming that people are going, you know, fairly hard at the dungeons and stuff for 2 weeks, which is a not insignificant amount of time before MC comes out, I think you'd get a lot of people pushing back again, being like, all I have to do is 1, you know, 40-minute MC and a couple of one-shot bosses a week. Like, I think we'd run into a problem pretty quickly with that, like we did with ST, where people were like, holy shit, all I've got is 1, you know, 40-minute raid a week. I think we'd be in the same spot. So I think that allowing people to do it twice a week, I think that helps a lot, especially where this gear is going to matter more than ST gear will moving forward.
Yeah, I think it'll reduce a lot of the. I think something that people don't actually fully like take into account is a lot of these guilds. Maybe this is just my experience. People do get kind of, you know, when things matter and you know the gear is sparse, especially in like 40-mans in vanilla. People get real upset over gear. Like, people get real upset over gear. That's not a loot drama. A lot of people think that that's a good thing. I am not super in the camp of thinking it's a great thing. I think that it matters and people care, and I think that that's a good thing. I don't think that the drama that sort of like persists around it and the community's sort of acceptance that gear is like this super important thing, I think that is less ideal. And so I think that having that dilution, I think the phase would actually be fine without it. I think having Kazakh and Azure Ghost once a week plus Molten Core is enough. I think that's enough with, you know, with the alts that you're going to level, because this is a 50 to 60. You're going to have to level those alts up. You're going to want to get your dungeon sets on them probably. But then you have 2 bosses to do a week out in the world to go do. And a lot of cases, the more hardcore guilds are going to want to do them with even less than 20 people because it's just going to be more loot for them. You might do it with 15. You might do it with 10. And so you're going to have content available to you, 2 bosses out in the world, 2 different encounters on 1 longer raid night with a Molten Core, considering the fact that you also have to world buff every time. I think the world buffing does cause some amount of fatigue, but also having people out in the world going to Dire Mall, getting that buff, going to Songflower, going to Felwood more frequently could be a good thing for the game, and I think that they want to see more activity, and I think they want to make it possible to main this game. I think that's the decision where I think that's where this is rooted. I think that you can't really main this game super hard. This is still like an alt for fun, you know, like side game. unless they add a little bit more content. I think the Molten Core is the push forward, and then it sets the pace for later on when you're going to have multiple nights a week, just because of the volume of raids, right? Because you're going to have ZG, you're going to have BWL and Molten Core, and probably all of them are going to be relevant at the same time. For a lot of guilds, that will be 2 nights a week. So if anything, keeping it 100 here, I didn't even think about this. This probably sets the pain point lower and sets a cadence and alleviates a pain point from later on, because we saw this huge issue. I'm sure everyone is aware of this, listening and participating. The 10 to 20 murdered a whole bunch of people. It gutted a whole bunch of raids. It could be the same thing that happens if we go from just Molten Core and these world bosses to Molten Core, BWL, ZG. That might just, the pure volume increase might gut a whole bunch of raids. So setting the tone early and setting that cadence early, even if they're not thinking about it, because I'm reading this Aggrend tweet, it seems like he's just thinking that, hey, it's more content, it's optional, etc. Maybe that's what they were thinking. Maybe they weren't thinking about the cadence and this setting the tone for later on. Even if they weren't, I think it does a good job of doing that. I think that you want to set up 2 nights a week for this kind of stuff. I think vanilla is designed around having that, realistically speaking, for the vast majority of its content.
Manny, I'm chuckling at your comment about Oni famously being a 30-minute fight.
Yeah.
Oh, also there's Ani. Oh, also there is Ani. Yeah, there is Ani. We have, but like, there is enough stuff to do. There is enough stuff to do without the double lockout. But I think giving the option, honestly, it might be kind of gross having double Ani as well. Ani, I dislike Ani. I dislike Ani. I'm not a big fan of it.
I'll just say, Manny, you're about to say something. I'll just jump in. Poor Ubiquitous is in the crowd, absolutely fucking fuming, because he wishes he could be here and he wants to yell at everyone who he's pro this decision. He wants to yell at everyone who's against it for many of the same reasons that North is kind of bringing up there, where Ubiquitous is saying, look, last time I checked, more content was a good thing. So why are we complaining about this? That I'm sure I'll talk to him on Saturday morning or Friday night US Europe time, and we'll talk about this. But Manny, I think you and him are probably on the same page a bit in that regard.
Yeah,
there's a difference between.
Hang on, John, you go, and then we'll go to Manny.
No, Manny was about to say something. I want to let him go first.
All I was going to say was what Ubiquitous was kind of saying earlier. It's funny that you mentioned him, because he was specifically who I was going to bring up, talking about how, and like North mentioned too, all throughout Vanilla, all throughout TBC, all throughout Wrath, pretty much every single guild that I saw recruiting, all the guilds that I was in, they were all 2 days a week guilds, every single one. It's kind of funny, like Ubiquitous is saying, how is everyone losing their mind now about 2 days a week when people have been doing it for 5 years already? How did people do 3-day lockouts, which is worse than this proposed twice weekly, all through phase 1 and phase 2, and all of a sudden they're losing their mind about twice weekly lockouts now? I get that there's going to be guilds who would chose like Tuesday, Thursday, and they're going to be like, oh shit, what do I do now? But this isn't new to Classic. This isn't new to Vanilla in that respect, that there's 2 raid days a week. That's something that was like required for a huge portion of the population for a long time.
Okay, go for it, John.
Can I jump on that?
Wait. Let John go, and then we'll jump on you, Arcos.
I mean, I think there's definitely a difference between like content, between quality content and just quantity content. Doing the same raid twice a week is going to get pretty old. I mean, if people said that, oh yeah, TLC will be fine, or even when Older War came back, you guys are going to get kind of bored with it after a couple months. People are like, no, it'll be great. I'll be able to do it for a year. And then 5 months in, it's like, Jesus Christ, this tier's lasting forever. And I don't think that Molten Core has that kind of staying power.
Yeah, we're looking at
but
weeks,
this is
though.
the
We're not
classic
looking at months
content
for this.
We're not looking at a 5-month phase. And even then in Old War, most people that I talked to in Old War, it was fine in Old War. The real pain point that existed post Old War was going back to Old War. When you were in TOGC, going back to Old War, that super sucked.
Also,
and they alleviated that a lot with the like the 10 men. Like, even you had to do 10 men, and thank God they introduced the gammas, because the 5 mans carried us away from having to do 10-man Algalon every single week for gear that was pretty insane. So I mean, they have solutions to this. They understand some of these pain points. I really don't think people are kind of losing their minds over something that is sort of a nothing burger, right? Like, it is. Yes, it is more of the same content, but it's just, hey, you can raid more with your boys. I think something that's really worth considering, though, because everyone's like, yeah, like SoD's alt friendly. No, SoD is not fucking alt friendly. SoD is actually very, 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 very anti alt, because you have to collect all of the goddamn runes. I would rather have there be 2 raids a week and not have a fucking clone than I have to go collect every goddamn rune on a second time as a hardcore player. And I'm sure the casuals feel the same way. It's really, really tough. If I want to raid twice a week and it's only 1 raid a week, right? It's only one lockout a week. I'm going to have to go collect, 30 some odd runes, a lot of which are pretty difficult to acquire or pretty annoying to acquire. Displacement, kind of bubbles up there as one, but Mage doesn't even have that many that are annoying, other than like going around and collecting every book across the entire world is kind of annoying to do a second time. So as much as people are like, ooh, it's alt friendly, I think the solution to it being alt unfriendly is giving you a second lockout, especially early on. You're getting more access to gear early on, and so it feels less like you have to have a clone as a hardcore player. Just as, obviously there are not a lot of people in that subsect who super care about what the hardcore players think, but that's great for me. That's fantastic for my group and my ilk. Even if there's some people groaning and moaning about it, I don't think that they appreciate how kind of difficult it is to really bring these characters up, because I want my Warsong Gulch rep on them, and I want my Hydraxian rep on them moving forward. I'm going to want the Thorium Brotherhood rep. I'm going to want to do these dailies every single day at Thorium and want to do the Blackrock events, and I'm going to want to doing PvP for the tier 10 sets. Obviously that won't last forever, but there is a lot of stuff to do here, and doing it on multiple characters could be difficult. So having the double lockout, I think, also solves something of an issue, or at least ameliorates the situation where it makes having 1 character or 2 characters as opposed to 4 or 5 for hardcore players a lot more relevant. So I'm instead of playing 4 mages this phase, I'm probably going to play a mage and a rogue, or 2 mages and a rogue, but nothing more than that. God forbid anything more than that. And that seems a lot better for me. I enjoy that more. I like having less characters. It especially if I can raid the same amount as if I had more. I think that for me, it's the best of both worlds.
I'll just say, Arcos, I'll throw it over to you, and I'll just say, it's been coming up a little bit recently, but yeah, that comment does resonate with me, North, about the alts, SoD not being as alt-friendly as some may be led to believe. As someone who's leveled 3 new characters over the last 10 days, yeah, getting the runes has been... Everyone knows this. Getting the runes has been tedious at best. Like, just last night, I was, dicking around and on my level 35 priest, and I went to go get the Mind Spike rune, and just that 1 rune took me like over an hour to get, when you take into account like walking around. I didn't have the flight paths and everything, so I guess there's that. But about an hour and 10 minutes to get this rune in a game where each level is only taking me about half an hour. Like, the 150% is a godsend. The Discoverer's Delight or whatever is fantastic, but it's great to zoom through the levels, but then it's just the hidden sunk time with the runes is crazy. But anyway, Arcos, go nuts.
Yeah, I want to go back to the conversation with Manny and you big cunt regarding the raid days and the timing. And like the original comment from Manny is the 30-minute timing on Elixir. I think we don't know how hard the raids are. We are making assumptions when we say the raids are going to be fast or they're going to be long. Like, we have absolutely no idea what the difficulty is, right? We just know that there are 3 difficulties. But the thing that people I think are not taking into account is how inefficient the casual can be. Probably not all of them, but we talk about I've talked about the movement between the raids. Like, how long does it take to go in between? Like, what type of time frame are you looking at for a raid night? We can't say how long it takes to clear something, but if we go on the assumption that it's similar, like the easiest level might be similar to like classic raids. Of course, we have so much more power now that will feel like an easier raid. I think people are still looking at an hour and a half, 2 hours for casual groups that take a long time to move in between places because they're not going together, they're not optimized. And the argument that we did 2 raid nights a week in 2019, 2020 in TBC, I don't think that really holds water, because if that difficulty content took you 2 raid nights to get through, I'm not sure you're doing this raid in an hour, right? Like, we don't know what the difficulty is, of course, but if it took you, to do a full Black Temple clear, if it took you 2 evenings to do that, are you doing Molten Core and 4 other bosses in 1 hour, 30 minutes?
I think it's more. I think it's more in TBC. It's more that you had to spam girls, even as like a hardcore raid. Like we did a zillion different girl splits. So even we had the same problem, and it's a problem that we'll have here as well. That you're just going to want to do splits for stuff that's relevant later on. And so just getting as many DSTs as humanly possible, especially given how strong hunters and warriors ended up being in BT patch and later on. Obviously, you didn't need DST forever, but like in that phase, it was a very, very good item for splits, and like it was near BIS.
But this is the purpose
for a lot of those classes.
This is the purpose of the hard modes to rectify the need for having to do all of those splits, is it not?
Yeah, and I think in part the double, right, like with the double lockout, you get the same thing, right? Like it lets you play one character more often if you need, and if not, I think that we will be surprised at the volume of gear that drops in these raids. These are 20-man raids. The heat mode increases gear. Conservatively, heat mode 3 has to drop 2 extra pieces per boss, right? Like even if we're just napkin math on that, 2 extra pieces per boss across the entire raid is going to mean that this gear is going to become irrelevant shockingly quickly. You will not need to do this for long, and if it is that you need to do it the entire time, it'll be because the phase is 4 weeks long.
Oh,
right?
Here I was thinking that it might be something like there's a chest at the end of the raid, and that contains some of the really more difficult pieces to get that only drop once in the entire encounter. But now you have a chance of getting, I don't know, Onslaught Girdle, Band of Acuria, Obsidian Edge Blade, all could drop a couple of times
in the same chest.
In the same chest at the end of the raid.
I think that would be a great way to do it as well, and that also significantly reduces a pain point of those really rare items, the Brute Blades, to a lesser extent Ring of Spell Power. I hate Ring of Spell Power, but it's neither here nor there. Maybe Azure Song, stuff like that. So like being able to have like all of those good items then maybe on a chest at the end on like just like this juice loot table for doing tier 3 might be relevant, and then also reduces a pain point because the other stuff is tier gear, and we're not even using, it's not the old tier gear, it's not Arcanist gloves drop. You have tokens now. Tokens make it easier to gear, right? Like we have so many tools to make it easy to gear. I don't think that you're going to be chained down to the content forever, and if you are, I think people will actually be having a good time. We saw this with archaeology, and people are going to be like, whoa, when I say that. We saw people want to play the game. Archaeology sucked because it forced them to do just run around in the world and do essentially AFK content. Molten Core is not AFK content. Getting people to world buff more often, to get consumes more often, to go into raid often, to play more with their friends more often. As much as they might be like, ooh, pain point here, like I can't commit to that. That's okay. That's strife where you really want to play the game more and you can't do it, but you really want to play the game more and you want to prioritize World of Warcraft more in your life. I think is a situation that the developers want. I think they want you to want to play the game, and even if it's because you're chasing that carrot, that's a good thing for them. They want you to go in there and feel it because they should be confident in their content on its own, that it's not just the carrot, that that there is some stick involved, that there is some real meat to this content, and that you will have fun playing your class in these situations. Because when I have played my class, the only difficulty that I have in this phase right now is it's just so easy, and it sucks that I'm just sitting there on Mage and I'm like, well, I might as well not even be healing here. I might as well just be throwing Frostfire bolts and just chronostaticking every so often. I don't actually even need to really heal. That's my biggest issue. But if the meat of the content feels good and it feels good to play those raids and do those raids, it's not gonna be an issue, right? Like if it feels good to play, yeah, you're doing it twice a week if you want to, and if you feel kind of pushed into it, yeah, I think people will be having fun playing more.
Right,
I really do think so.
Aren't
it's a
you
good
contradicting yourself a little bit here, because you say that we're going to be drowning in loot, right? Let's put aside the length of the phase because we don't know it.
Sure.
It could be 2 weeks, 4, 6, 8, like whatever. We don't know.
Yeah.
If we're drowning in loot, for a lot of people, there won't be any reason to raid anymore. Like once you've gotten your gear, there's no fucking reason to go back into the raid. So there isn't that replayability for the raid unless you have an ulterior modem.
There's the chase pieces in
if we're drowning in the loot, if we're
probably drowning in the vast majority. But to
be fair to Arcos's point, North, the chase items no longer become chase items if we truly are drowning in it.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. You're drowning in loot that drops off the boss. We'll have to see the loot tables, etc. We'll have to see how they alter them. No amount of, and this is the thing. People do Molten Core really late into vanilla. Why do they do it really late into vanilla? It's because those chase items still exist. How relevant are they or aren't they? Especially when tier 0.5 is being increased beyond belief. Especially when
I get that. But living in the hypothetical world, North, where that is changed a little bit, where now we are sort of seeing all these onslaught girdles and whatnot pop up, then it
and
does
if we are,
change
that's fine.
the argument.
If we are, that's fine. If people are pushing the phase, the most fun that people have, everyone here will agree with this. If you don't agree with this, I have to draw you and I have to quarter you, and that's just the rule. The fresh grind at the beginning of a phase, at the beginning of World of Warcraft, is the best version of it. So yeah, if you're Molten Core twice a week and you're grinding there and you're doing your tier 0.5 and you're grinding dungeons, you're doing your world tours across to trying to get as many tokens as you can to gear up with whatever the tokens will end up buying us, and you're doing your thorium point dailies, yeah, the game surges and it's really, really fun for that period of time. And then hopefully they can bring us on to the next treadmill on the next phase by the time that begins to peter out. But I hope that it peters out quickly, because I don't want to have to sit here at my computer and always play World of Warcraft forever, like 18 zillion times a week on 15 different alts. They are kind of leaning into this thing where, they release new content. You see it with the increased cadence of the World of Warcraft schedule, where they'll release a thing and then release another thing, and they have, be it the MOP Reloaded, and then, you've got Plunderstorm, and you've got SoD, and you've got Hardcore, and you've got Kata. And so they have these things where they understand the most fun parts of these, especially when they're not long-term system sandbox MMOs, in the theme park, it's great to try out the new rides. And then once you've done the new rides quite a bit, you're going to want to try some other stuff. You're going to want to do some other stuff. You're going to want to, some of the novelty is key in its fun. And so being able to have these short, sort of like bursts, if it lasts 4, 5, 6 weeks and no longer, I think it'll be very successful, and that's their stated intention. If it lasts too long, I agree with you. It will be counterintuitive. My point, it won't really work. It will be, hey, there's no real point to these dungeons. We're now sitting here, we're in the same situation as we were with Sunken Temple, where I don't really need to, or with Nomer, I guess, where I don't really need to do these raids anymore. It's kind of irrelevant. This is nothing, and then no one's playing. At SoD, Sunken Temple is a bit different in terms of, there's just only one thing to do a week. People might log on to raid their one raid, but even then, the gear, especially early on, wasn't even that good, so it didn't even really matter. Within 2 lockouts of me doing it, I had basically everything that I needed on my character, because most of it wasn't better than old stuff or ranking gear that I could get or other stuff.
Settle down. Arcos, we finish your point, then Manny, then I'm going to change topics and get some of you other guys involved. I want you to start thinking about the new dungeon currency, because I'll get you to kick us off with that after we're done with this one. Arcos, go.
Yeah, I think North is covering too much ground for me to reply to all of it. But my feeling with the loot and the cadence is just that what I feel that we saw in phase 3 is that the raid was very easy once it had been nerfed to the point that it's at now, and we were showered in loot. And I think that we lost a lot of people because they were showered in loot and the raid was easy. So if we are now walking into phase 4, where I would assume the majority of raiders will not do heat 2 and 3, I think that will be a smaller percentile, of course, depending on difficulty. But if we're showered in loot, a lot of people won't keep raiding, because their reason to raid is to get loot, and once they have the loot, they don't really have a reason to keep playing. I think a lot of people think that way, whether they're being idiots and leaving their guildmates high and dry. I don't care, whatever. There are people who do that. So if we put aside the length of the phase, we don't know it. If we're showered in loot, where's the replayability in the raid for anyone who doesn't have an ulterior goal in the raid, like speed?
But isn't that the thing?
Let Manny jump in.
But it's the heat 3. The heat 3 is showered. It's an important point. The heat 3 is showered.
That's the point I'm going to make here. Is that there's 2 things here. There's, first of all, they in the video where they talked about the extra loot from heat 2, heat 3, whatever. The guy said, I think I can't remember his name, Clayton, I think it was.
Yeah.
He said you might be able to gear up a tiny bit faster. So I think making an assumption that we're going to get absolutely showered in loot is a big assumption. The second thing is, Arcos, you were saying not the majority of people probably won't do heat 3 and heat 2. That's where the bonus loot is. The people who are doing just heat 1, they're not going to get showered in loot. They're not going to get the bonus loot. They're not going to get geared up, and they're not going to quit because they've got all the gear, because they're not doing heat 2 and heat 3. The people who are consistently doing heat 3 double lockouts, they're the ones, like you say, who have the ulterior motive of speedrunning, of gearing up for world firsts, of stuff like that. So that's going to keep them engaged here. So I think this is a non-issue in the grand scheme of things. I guess it could be an issue if we've got a really long phase, but I don't think we're going to see that.
All right.
I thought Aggrend said that we are going to have a lot of loot. If that was only pigeonholed for heat 2 and 3, then I missed that.
Well, that's what they reference the chase pieces in like the extra rare loot in the Heat 2, Heat 3 thing, and that's like why people kept running MC for so long, like was referenced before, is to get those chase pieces. If those chase pieces are from Heat 2 and Heat 3, and the majority of people aren't doing Heat 2 and Heat 3, then they'll need to keep doing MC for those chase pieces.
To be fair, don't forget about legendaries as well.
Well,
yeah, that's included.
Rogue tanks need Thunder Furies.
Real quick, the other point of that post was not meant. He was not just talking about raid loot. He was talking about in phase 4 we're gonna have a lot of different items and we're gonna have so much loot. But he was referring also to the dungeon loot rework and revamp. So it's not necessarily like long-term loot. Like in the short term, you're gonna want to chase those dungeon sets, those reworked items from dungeons, and then move into the reworked raid loot too. So I think you guys are just using
World
one
bosses on top of it, right?
Well, yeah,
World bosses on top of it.
And this is the whole like. This is the bizarre argument about like, are we seriously here having a conversation about too much content in an MMO that Ubiquitous is tearing his hair out about? But anyway, guys, we'll that's a great segue, Sally. Let's talk about the dungeon announcement. I'll just say sorry, I forgot to say before, God, where are we? Thanks for the 2 months, my pet goose, Larry. You're a legend. Sorry not to shout you out earlier. Ubiquitous is saying, Josh, please give kudos to North for his big brain. Absolutely not. As you can see, he's starting to get a roll on. And fucking, if I've learned one thing with North, you know how you don't feed gremlins after midnight? You don't ever fucking compliment North on this podcast. Bad shit happens after you do that. So, Wonder. Let's get North on the sideline for a bit.
Uncalled for?
But true.
But true. Let's get North on the sideline for a bit and hear from some of you other guys. Next, whether you call it controversial or not, the next big talking point from the announcement was this new dungeon currency. A lot of people were happy. I know we're starting out with like the controversial shit. People were really happy with the bulk of the news we got in this Phase 4 announcement. I was really happy. There is some wild stuff to discuss, and we're not even going to get to the fucking Hunter changes today. Maybe we will. I don't know. I want to watch the fucking presidential election too, but maybe the better debate's happening right here on Countdown to Classic. But look, Wonder, the fucking the dungeon currency, everyone is talking about this as well, saying, ooh, it's a daily currency that drops off of every boss in higher content dungeons now. Is this a good or bad thing? I cheered when I first heard about it. I understand the argument against it where people are like, we don't like daily chores. People like Zoran, who we love in the Countdown Discord, was like, degenerates like me and Arcos now are going to have to run 7 classic dungeons in a day every day, or else we'll get left behind. And again, it comes down to an argument about what you do and do not have to do in classic at your own discretion. Wonder, what was your reaction to the new dungeon currency?
I would say that there is no chance of this attitude from Sweaties of being left behind that's actually realistic, because of the fact that the raid tiers are being released delayed. So if we're going to get, was it Kazakh and Azuragos in week 2, and you've got MC in week 3, then that's 3 weeks that you can be doing this stuff before it becomes irrelevant. So you're not ever really going to get phased out or be too slow if you're a sweaty. Now, for a casual player, it might be a little bit more different with how much time they have to commit. They might not be able to go through and do all of these dungeons, including the new one that they're putting in. Look, my mind is I'm glad that they removed the pain point from the wild offering system of it being one boss at the end of a dungeon. So you do the dungeon basically for no reason other than just to get to that last kill. So I think that's probably better, that it's every single boss that's over, what is it, level 55 that you have to kill?
Yeah, something like that.
And if we were to count up how many reels you'll be getting as a result of that, that's going to be a significant amount of reels per day if you did every single dungeon in
60
that one
to
day.
70. 60 to 70 a day.
And you've got a cap of 100. So, I mean, I can't imagine that you're going to need to spend 100 reels to get a gear piece upgrade. Like that doesn't seem to go with the theme of what they've done in Classic to date with all of the new releases. Like the commendations, for example, from the PvP event.
I think
they were really cheap.
I think the more controversial issue is going to be the pronunciation. Didn't Clayton say Real as in Real Madrid?
Well, that's
Aggrend
that caught me off guard, but I'm going with Real.
Real, isn't that the currency of Brazil as well?
I have no idea.
They just shortened Sidereal.
There you go. All right. Who wants to pick up next? Who's for, who's against? Tell me why.
One thing I would
sorry, go,
say,
mate.
though, there's no way you're getting to the presidential debate on time.
Oh, it starts in 12 minutes. Yeah, it starts in 12 minutes, and I'm fucked.
Watch the highlights. Watch the highlights.
I'll have to watch the replay.
The highlights are better anyway.
Hold on, if we
But
just
it's like a
let
sport.
North
It's
go
better
for 10
live.
minutes, we might be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could be if you. I have half of a paragraph of notes on this specific thing prepped, but I'm chained. I'm chained to the floor.
I fully realize we're going to have to do this now, and I am here for the next 2 fucking hours, and I'm going to have to watch the debate later on. That's okay. Look, Manny.
Just make them videotape it and then edit them in.
Yeah, I'll just tape it on a VHS and do it like old school. Manny, go for it.
I personally love it because I think that the major issue with Wild Offerings was that you just spam one thing over and over again, and this fixes that. And I don't think, because like I said, it was a rough count. Like, it depends a little bit on the level of some of the BRD bosses because they've adjusted them a little bit, and how many bosses are in the new dungeon. But it's looking like 60 to 70 bosses, and running, Strat Undead, Strat Live, Skolo, LBRS, UBRS, BRD, all the dire malls, and the new dungeon every single day. Like, people aren't going to do that, and that means that daily cap that people are talking about, that's effectively irrelevant. There's some people that are going to do it. Most people aren't going to do it. I know people have thrown out the idea of a weekly cap that increases. That's also unreachable for 99.5% of the population. You're not going to run 7 days worth of 70 bosses on the weekend when you have more free time. Like, you're just not going to do that. That's that's insane. You're never going to catch up in that respect if you fall behind, because you can't kill 70 bosses a day for 4 days during the week while you're working. So I think this is great. It's going to incentivize people to run different dungeons instead of just spam Johnny McFirst boss, who's the fastest to get to, or whatever one takes 15 minutes so you don't hit your instance cap. And you're going to have people who are looking for specific gear off different dungeons for alts, or early on as well, and they're going to be like, hey, I'm looking for a group for Scholomance, and people are going to be like, oh shit, I haven't done that yet today, I'll join that group even though I don't need any gear specifically from there. Or it could be Dharmal East or whatever. It's just going to make the formation of groups really easy for a lot of people, and it's going to incentivize running so many different dungeons. I love it. I think this is fantastic.
All right, I want to hear from everyone else before North can bring us home with his manifesto.
People are chipping away at it. It's just chipping away every point, every wonderful point by point. My manifesto is being. The spotlight is slowly fading.
Very good, very good.
I think that was a great point.
All is going according to plan. Then
Arcos, go for it. Worry. I agree that the amount of bosses is going to make it highly unlikely that any significant amount of players will reach that cap for a long duration, right? For weeks and weeks. But we don't know what the reward are, or which rewards there are, and how much they cost. My concern would be if there is a satchel where you can get a card, a DMF card, and that DMF card is best in slot for single target or AoE, then a fantastic carrot for people to either farm gold by selling them or to farm their deck to get up his trinket. Fantastic carrot. But it will put pressure on people to try and reach those caps, or at least to use a significant amount of their caps every day until they have it, right? Of course, if you have the gold, you just buy it from the auction house, but I think the rewards are very significant here, and for me to say if it's good or bad.
I'm very pro. Sorry, you go, Manny.
I was going to say that pressure might exist, but isn't it much better to be running a diverse subsection of dungeons if that pressure exists than just spamming 10-man Meridon Princess runs? Like, isn't that better gameplay? Isn't that better for the community because other people can join those runs and
I
get
think
gear
there's
they
a
need from
caveat
those
here.
bosses?
Yes.
Do you mean before they fixed the endless resets or after they fixed the endless resets?
Either. Like, it
Regardless.
sucked no matter what.
Yeah, the whole
I think
point.
if you mean after they fixed it, I think for me personally, no. I prefer doing 5 resets in 1 hour by myself solo than do 60 bosses with a group.
Well, you're a degen, that's why.
No, but like,
you gotta think about. You gotta think about.
I feel like people blow up the wild offering thing like way too much just because of the first week when you could reset endlessly.
Hold
Like,
on a second. I've
found
300 kills of
card
fucking
card.
Princess solo. That shit was
Yeah.
not fun.
But it's comfy. Like, you're solo, you can do it in your own time whenever you want. You can watch Netflix while you're doing it. Like, you don't need to rely on other people to group with. You don't need to be going full ham blast like the 10-man groups were going. Like, I agree that the 10-man groups at first, when you could do endless lockouts, there was immense pressure to keep going. But if you're doing a solo kill in 20 minutes or something, and there's a 30-day cap or there's a 5-hour cap, whatever, it's a comfortable farm that you can enjoy doing or not enjoy doing. But if you don't enjoy it, like,
I think you're losing me with this argument for sure. And I'm Captain Solo, and you're still fucking losing me. Look,
Disgusting.
Zim, I think you were going to say something else before, or did we get there?
Yeah, no, I mean the whole point of like it's just like Gamma and all the other different variations in Wrath of the Lich King. They want to make the content, viable and accessible, which is the big word of this phase.
There's my alarm for the debate.
Yeah, and they want to keep everything relevant, which this is exactly what that does. So it just keeps people going back to that content. Obviously it'll depend whether or not the gear from it is any good or not, or if you can make money off of it, whatever have you, but it makes it relevant, and that's the goal.
I think that depends on the rewards still. Like, if the rewards are worth going back again and again, like, yeah, you're making content last longer than it did, back in classic vanilla. We did dungeons for a while and then it's gone, right? But if the rewards are so significant, then it does put pressure on some people to do it more than the average person is, and I think there you can get into degeneracy again.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be great to have it as your tier 0.5 set. Make it part of that quest chain, which they overhaul.
It will likely be. It will likely be. The reason why they use the word deterministic when they talked about that currency is probably because it will let you buy pieces of tier 0 with that currency in order to make up for the fact that the drops won't be ideal, especially because they're pushing you in other dungeons. They're not encouraging you to spam the same dungeon over and over and over again, which is how you would get your relevant, for instance, helmet from Dark Master Gandling. But that will probably be, if I had to put my thinking cap on, which it currently is on, that's probably what they do in terms of the gear component, and there probably will be some side things. Maybe it's Dreamfoil, maybe it's maybe it's Mithril, who knows? Maybe it's sappers that you can get from it, but hopefully a long-term component where you would just still want to do dungeons later on because they want to incentivize 5-mans. As much as Arcos is like, yeah, I would prefer to do the solo farm. Fuck the solo farm. 5-man's own. They're some of the best content in World of Warcraft. Those dungeons are masterfully made. Lean into them. They own. They're fucking awesome. Right? Give us more of them.
Can I just say my dream?
I agree here. I'm not saying 5-man dungeons are bad or they're boring. I've asked for more things for 5-man dungeons to be relevant, but I asked for different things. I'm just saying.
How would you prefer it to look other than this, though? Right? Like, what would it look like if not?
This is just for me. Like, I really wanted a Mythic Plus timer for cosmetic rewards, but that's because I enjoy that. I understand that a lot of people don't, but
they can always add that.
For me,
I think that's just a lot of engineering. I think that's a lot of engineering. I don't even think that's an issue of. I don't think people think that's uninteresting. I think that's cool. I would really like that. I like that as a repeatable version of the content. And for cosmetics, I think that would be really cool and very fun because, like I said, I love those dungeons and being able to do them quickly and efficiently. That seems like a good time. But if this becomes like a good farm where you doing a 5-man of, let's say you just like doing a quick tour, like a mini world tour of all the Dire Maul bosses and be able to just like tear through Dire Maul really, really quickly when you're getting your tribute buffs anyway, right? It creates this incentive to live in the dungeons a little bit more, which is, to be honest, what 2019 Classic was missing. People weren't doing enough dungeons. The only dungeons where people really were consistently doing as a group was probably strat live, and this kind of gives you that. It gives you that. Hey, here's essentially a righteous orb, right? Here's this currency. If it could be used for things that don't suck, maybe you can buy righteous orbs with it. But if it can be used for consumables or for something that essentially equates to gold, it means that 5-man dungeon farming is an efficient form of gold farming, which, as much as you hate GDKPs, the only reason I like GDKPs, if anyone hates them, the only reason I like them is because it lets raiders make money by raiding. If you let 5-man dungeon doers make money by doing 5-man dungeons, I think that is glorious.
Well,
that is so sick.
Let me weave this in, North, because I was literally just about to say, and you've perfectly organically raised it anyway, is I applauded.
Don't compliment him.
I know.
Don't compliment him.
True. I applauded this new currency. I'm look, where I said I wasn't sure how I feel about the twice a week lockout thing. I know how I feel about this currency. I was okay with it. I think it's a good move. In my dream world, purely to shut the, and I get that a lot of the listeners to the podcast love GDKP, and you guys know my position for years on this one, but to shut the fucking GDKP enjoyers up, my dream, and I'm happy for you to tear this one apart, North, but I would have loved to see this currency come in and then have this thing you get from bosses be soulbound to you, and that's what you use to bid with in a GDKP-esque environment, and these, when you hand them over, whatever, they can be vended for gold. I don't know. I just thought that was like the happy medium, but maybe I'm wrong.
Wait. Can you expand on it? So they're bound to you, but you can trade them.
No. I haven't thought this. I haven't thought this through.
It was a gold version of DKP.
Sorry? Yeah, basically, I haven't thought it through completely, so feel free to tell me apart. But what I'm saying, North, is somehow you have a soulbound item, but it is tradable within a designated GDKP environment. You hand it over and you pay with your tokens, and those tokens can be vended for gold.
As you kill the bosses relevant in the raid itself, not in the raid it would give you tokens, and then that's how it worked, so that you could still trade them.
I was saying the dungeons could give you tokens. I don't know. Like I said, there's difficulties, because then how do you distribute the cash amongst everyone? I guess. Well.
And then why would people if
why would people go
worthwhile to cash out? Why would they not just cash?
Well, then
out
wouldn't the total number of tokens be divvied up between the raid?
You're getting distracted, Josh.
Yeah, I probably need to think this one out a bit more. But you know what I mean.
I think it would. I like the sort of formation of it. I just do think you need to put a little bit more time into some of the nitty gritty, because I think the nitty gritty matters there.
Are you suggesting the 3 seconds?
I like the idea though.
Are you suggesting the 3 seconds I spent thinking about this wasn't enough?
Yeah, maybe 4 next time.
Anyway,
given you only have 3 brain cells might not be enough. Anyway.
Exactly. All right, someone else is going to jump in on this one. We're still going on the new dungeon token, or dungeon currency, I should say. Is anyone drastically against this who we haven't heard from? No. Is everyone quite for it?
Let's hear it, John. You were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how they're going to execute it. Because if it's going to be like, oh, hey, you can collect this thing, it's once a day, you miss out for a day, then you're going to be behind. It also depends on they said gear, materials. I mean, what kind of materials are we talking about? Because some people are like, oh, well, what if it's an Arcanite bar, or what if it's Mithril bar, or whatever it might be. It's still. I mean, I get that they want you. If the goal is to get people to participate in dungeons, and from what I read, it was like, hey, it can drop from any non-rare 55 or level 55 and up dungeon boss. Well, that means all I got to do is just go in and kill one boss. That seems kind of lame, and it's not going to help anybody get any gear, because we're not going to clear it instances. It's going to turn into what it's always been. Okay, if I got to kill the last boss, then we're going to skip every boss. We're going to go to the end, and boom, we're done. Because that's the most efficient way for me to get this currency.
Yeah, well, fortunately, it seems to be every boss.
That's going to be even worse. It's like, okay, so if I can get X number a day, then what instance do I want to run the fastest and quickest? And then what bosses can I wind up possibly skipping?
I think that creates interesting metas and dynamics, though, right? Where it's like people are now farming the 5-mans. You don't have people doing trib runs, especially if you organically make this more profitable and better than, for instance, going into a trib run or farming Dire Maul East, or doing things that generally people view as unsavory, farming princess runs to vendor shit. I think that this is a much better version of that. If I can farm with my, like my crew of 4 or 5 people, I get this comes from a hardcore angle where I can get those people that just, they play all day, they sit in Discord, it's what they do. But even for the other people, right, like it's going to mean so many more people are doing these 5-mans. The 5-mans are, I don't know about how everyone else feels. I think when the 5-mans are good and well incentivized, World of Warcraft is its most fun. Especially when it bleeds into other stuff, when there's other stuff to do, but the 5-mans are essential and they're a pillar, and it sort of bleeds out into other stuff. Doing lava runs for Iron Foe comes to mind on private servers as a big one. Just I liked being able to log on, spam lava runs with my boys because we were farming a thing together, right? Like you're kind of in the thick of it, playing the game, doing some of the best content, and trying to optimize there. Yeah, no, it's not a Mythic Plus timer, but you're really trying to make your margins faster. You want to get through this content faster because there's a lot of stuff to do, and you get rewarded for it. So I think it's a good incentive, but it'll depend on what the gear is. It'll depend on what the rewards are. It'll depend on how exactly how the incentives line up. Because if it is too valuable, is it gonna feel bad that you can't do all 70 a day? It might, but then it rewards people who really can play a lot, and then they don't have to farm right out in the world or do some weird stuff. Maybe they buy dark runes with it. Maybe they buy demonic runes. Maybe they buy consumes with it. So they have to farm out in the world a little less often, and they can just do 5-mans for that kind of thing. It'll depend on what they make, the carrot at the end of the stick.
All right, North, I'm going to chime in. I've updated. We're going to go on quick tangents as I update and develop this idea of mine. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Let's hear it.
So,
brain cell number 4.
Brain cell number 4 has emerged, and we're going to say this.
Yep.
The thing with this idea is this might be problematic, but I think it's okay. We're removing the player admin side of things right now. The game administrates the GDKP. Are you with me? So you go do dungeons, you collect soulbound items called silver tokens, whatever, right? And you get that off every dungeon boss. You amass your fucking pot of silver tokens. You go to a GDKP. You right click. We are now entering a GDKP dungeon, like you would if you were going to a heroic. It says here GDKP, whatever. Everyone's on board. You all go in. You do your thing. Every item that drops like a loot box that pops up for your bid. The game does all this for you. It goes, what do you want to bid? And you go through the bidding process, and it has a timer and all that shit, and you do your thing. Then at the end of the dungeon, the game knows how many total silver coins were spent, and then it mails everyone an equal distribution, an item that's now a gold coin, and says, hey, here's your 5 gold coins that you can vendor for gold that you got for participating in that dungeon run. And hopefully everybody's happy. What do you think?
I think that could be good so long as there was and I think that's something you're missing because you're like, oh, okay, well, the game's administrating now. That's great. Whoever leads the group should be given something else, right? Like they should be given more tokens, whatever it is. You want to emulate that cut because the worst part about this, and the thing that GDKPs do so effectively, if you sit down, you really think it out, you parse it out, is that the hard part of getting the group together, making sure things work, making sure the bosses are going to die, leading that effort is rewarded very heavily, right? And so it heavily incentivizes people to go and do it because you're getting so much out of it. And so I think that if you remove that component of it, so long as you can add this to your system, right? The person that goes in when they're the leader of the group, it'd be difficult if it switches as you go on. But like if everyone agrees to it at the start, right? Like you kill the first boss and everyone agrees, okay, this person's the leader, maybe in the system, obviously a lot of engineering involved in a bunch of the stuff, but then they get an extra set of gold coins at the end. I actually think that could work, and I think that would be good because then you get the currency that you have there is not, ooh, I spent money, I swiped for some gold here. It's, hey, I played the game more. I have this currency that we're going to use to get these items. I think that would work so long as the leader and the person organizing it is still incentivized. Maybe not as much, but somewhat.
There we go.
Hold on. So it just sounds like that's a GDKP with players having a lower gold cap.
It's also the only way you obtain the currency is BOP, and the only way you obtain the currency, obviously you can have your friends bid for you, but then it goes into your bags. So if there's no trading involved, it would quite literally just be, hey, how much you do these dungeons, or maybe you get it through PvP, maybe you get it through a variety of things, maybe you still get it from gathering. How often you play the game feeds into the currency that you're getting, and then you can choose to bid that currency on other stuff. The issue would then be depending on, but you're saying depending on how many tokens are spent, that's the gold that comes out at the end. So there is then the inherent incentive. Hey, you're not just going to go in and be like, ooh, yeah, no one else bid on this. Let me just get this one thing. Then there is no incentive to that. You're going to want people to organically play the game, get the tokens. You're going to encourage people to bid each other up. It's going to be still a real system. I think it actually could work. The issue is just the engineering.
This is and there's a whole lot of technical things to it.
No one would ever. The engineers, I'm assuming, are always swamped, and so getting people to spend time on that kind of system when you could just kind of leave it to the players and let them do it.
100%. This is in a perfect world where devs have all the time in the world to build this, and I realize this would probably
become an engineer.
Very good. Yeah, I should
studying.
But Zim, this is
to a position.
This is in a world where hypothetically, your GDKP is banned. It's against TOS. If they catch you, they'll ban you. But this is your official alternative. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think realistically, get the fifth brain cell involved, right? Like go.
Don't, mate. Now you're pushing your luck. Don't ask for the.
Go get some computer science. Go get some computer science under your belt. Be the change that you want to see in the world.
Exactly.
While you're doing that too, you got to get it to run through Warcraft logs to check debuff uptime and dock people gold coins if the debuff uptime isn't perfect.
Well, I thought of that. I thought of that because people would be spewing.
All that.
I thought of that people would be upset that shit performers still get equally paid, and I thought, well, that's where the community steps in, and again, you have to police yourselves and be like, hey, that guy was terrible in our last GDKP run. He's not getting invited with us again. And that's kind of like for the community to sort out as opposed to having payments change. But anyway, Elianath, hey, mate, you just jumped in. Sorry, go Arcos, then Elianath.
I want to give your fifth brain cells two things to consider while you're formulating. I think you have a leech problem that you need to fix. Because if you make a group like this and by the end no one has bid coins or like very few people have bid coins, there are no coins in the pot, right? And your idea is completely wasted.
But isn't that the exact same problem with the GDKP?
Yes and no, because you don't take people with 0 gold. You take people with gold.
No, but you can have small.
Hey, open trade. Show me how many tokens you got in your bag there, buddy. Let me see that stack of 500 tokens. There ain't no entrance.
Exactly, and you can have small pots.
You can make them showable, or you can send screenshots, etc., etc.
They better be
the second issue was. Sorry, the second.
Wait, I'll do you just while you're thinking. I'll do you one better. If you need to answer your problem there, Arcos, make a fucking like a poker game. A minimum deposit goes into the pot to join this GDKP run that can be set by the fucking party leader.
I think it should be like a social credit score where your token amount shows above your character's head.
The new
gear score now.
No, but you could actually on a serious note, you could then, it would be interesting because then you could have situations where they've like put death roll items into the game now, right? Like you could death roll these tokens. It could be a very, very interesting thing. You could sit in a tavern and people could play, like maybe they, like have like a little Hearthstone-esque little poker game where you can just trade these tokens. All of it's in game. It's like stuff that you actually.
Now we're talking.
Imagine the population just chilling in the taverns in Stormwind and Ironforge, just sitting there, and Josh and I are just playing poker with our silver chips. Yep. It would kind of be sick.
Yeah, looking for 30 silver coin buy-in. 30 silver coin buy-in. Let's go roll up. Who wants some of the action?
Yeah.
But now I'm buying your coins, right? Because if we can trade the coins
true.
Way,
we can trade the coins
now
like
I'm just
that.
buying
Yeah,
your
you're
coins.
But you can't trade the coins.
Sorry,
but you can't trade the
he's saying the
coins.
poker game. He's saying the poker game's an issue because you could just RMT in through the poker game.
No. But let's say it's. Oh yeah, I'm with you. Sorry, I hear you. Yep. Okay.
If you
play a game that you can throw, then I can buy you to throw the game.
And that's true.
Whatever amount I'm buying.
That's
true.
While we're speedrunning terrible ideas, how can we incorporate vote kicking people from dungeons into this?
No.
Actually,
would the leader be able to kick? I mean, you would have to be able to kick, and if you kicked right before, do you get like your current portion?
You still get your current portion. Yeah, up to that point.
You probably would.
This is all great hypothetical.
I think we should dedicate one special podcast to this idea.
Absolutely. Okay, that's another thing.
When the fifth and sixth brain cells have been put to work.
That's my bad. Where were we?
You're the host. You should know.
I should.
Yeah, I feel like that's your. I feel like that's your job, dog.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. Feel like we've kind of covered it. So, did Simon and I have the same idea? I mean, it's one of those things. Like,
I think it was that one.
Okay. But it's one of those things. There's only so many like options to come up with. It's like, fucking, people come up with the same jokes. Like, we're all going to think of the same shit eventually.
Yeah, it's like eyes. No, it's like eyes in the animal kingdom. You look at octopus, have the same exact eyes as like humans. They're like very, very close together. There's only so many types of things that you can actually come up with in reality.
Okay, look at a mantis shrimp's eyes, though. Come on.
Oh my god, we're getting deep.
I mean, there are other options. There are other, but there are only so many. There are only so many ways to squeeze a juice an Oreo.
Right.
I don't.
Squeeze a what?
Squeeze the juice of an Oreo. That's exactly it.
I don't know where I was going with this. I don't know where I was going with this.
Ale. We have discussed double lockout, and commiserations to you and Manny and Canada for what happened the other day in the Stanley Cup. I watched live. It was a rough watch. Look. So we've covered that, guys. Is there anything else to say about the dungeon currency before we move on? No.
Yeah, we need to know what the rewards are.
We need to know what the rewards are. Fair enough.
We do need to know what the rewards are, but I do think it's a much better system purely because it will encourage the world tour. I think that the other systems, right, like 5-mans would still be relevant, especially with like the release cadence that we have and with the tier 0.5, but it would come down to a lot of like spamming the same dungeon. And I think this is a very innovative way to create, like, to reintroduce the world tour, because then what you also have is people just going around the world. Like, I'm currently organizing the world tour groups for my guild. You have people flying around the world to go do these other dungeons, right? You have people constantly in the mountain. You have people in Eastern Plaguelands. You have people in Western Plaguelands. You have people around Dire Maul. Creating that organic foot traffic is beautiful. Like, that is such a good thing. It will probably be gutted by warlocks summoning people all around the place, which sucks. But, if that could be solved for, if that could be fixed, I think it would be a very, very wonderful thing. I think they should just make it so you can't summon there. But obviously that would suck. I would have to think more about that. But that is just creating organic foot traffic and organic movement around the map and organic uses for dungeons that would be kind of irrelevant in most cases. Dire Maul West, good example. Most people don't really go there, and people probably still won't go there in volume. But now there at least is somewhat of a reason.
Okay,
right? There's something.
Hey, Manny.
We killed off the summoning system on Living Flame NA by putting bounties out on all the summoners.
Oh, hell yeah.
There you go. Hey, Manny, I
think the biggest thing for you, Josh,
you're right,
for this dungeon thing is that there would be a lot of PvP for you outside the dungeon portals.
Oh, I'm fucking ready. Yep. I'm ready. This is going to be beautiful.
No, agreed. And on the way, yeah.
Manny, am I crazy? See, I didn't realize. Ale is saying, no, you're a fool, Josh. The NHL has cities. Like, we don't root for Canada just because another Canadian team's in there. We don't give a fuck. It's different in Australia. Like, if my team doesn't make the rugby final, but another Australian team does against a New Zealand team, like, you better believe the whole of Australia is cheering for the Australian team.
Whole of Australia?
Oh, fuck off. Absolutely. The bulk.
There's certain rivalries in Canadian hockey that run deeper than national pride will go.
Yeah.
There are certain ones, like Flames fans, like Edmonton fans would have felt worse if they saw Flames fans cheering for them in the Stanley Cup final.
Right.
They'd have been like, fuck you, you're not cheering for my team, we hate you. Right. Yeah, and there's just certain rivalries that will not be.
Yeah. No, I get it. I guess I'd be torn cheering for like New South Wales in the rugby final against like fucking the Crusaders or something. But I don't know. I still think I'd kind of want them to win. I don't know. You want your country to do well. But anyway.
Come on. You can't sit there and say that if you lived in LA, you would be rooting for the Boston Bruins in the Stanley Cup final.
I think it's different. It's different when you're American.
If it's international.
When you got the little brother syndrome that we have, it's a bit different.
Look at esports. Look at esports. Same thing in esports. Like the West will always root for the West, right? Like when NA falls, NA will start rooting for EU. When EU falls, if they do before NA, which almost never happens, they'll start rooting for NA, right? Like the West will kind of cling together before then eventually going for, and supporting the, like the Eastern teams that they like the most. In a lot of cases, right? People will kind of, because it's such a meme, people will, pray for the teams in the West. and kind of, even if it isn't your favorite team in whatever league and whatever game, there's still that a little bit of camaraderie, but I think that's only because it's international.
Hey, let me jump in real quick on this one. I'm okay with this. I just want to ask if it's a talking point at all for any of you. Level 50 to 59, 50% increased experience gains. Given that it's the final phase and we kind of have time now, do you guys, are you cool with this? Are you not cool with this? We have talked on the podcast before about do we need to speed up the leveling through the phase? Why don't we make that part of the journey, blah, blah, blah. But like I said, I'm okay with it, but I'm here for the discussion.
I'm fine with it given everything else they've given us.
Yeah.
Especially just like we were talking about, the extra tokens or coins or whatever from every boss. As you're leveling, you're going to be doing those dungeons, so you'll be collecting them as you go.
Yeah. Anyone else on this one?
It's an abbreviated phase. It's only going to be maybe 6 weeks long. You want to, if you're like you, Josh,
yeah, no, you're right.
You're an altaholic.
Yeah. No, I hadn't thought of that.
It would be a pretty big pain point if they didn't introduce the fifth, because even just from the previous phases, they've all been buffed, and so having other than 1 to 25, I think so. Having to do 50 to 60 is actually not that bad. I don't think it's bad as 40 to 50 natty. I think 40 to 50 natty is the worst 10 levels in the game.
No, it's
50 to 60 is actually not that bad, but it would be way worse.
Like 44 to 54 is the worst.
Yeah. It's like mid 40s.
But anyway, no, I hear you. I didn't think of that. Given that we're not getting all the raids and everything, no, you're right. I'm wrong. It should be there. That's a good call. Hey, let's talk about Ale's point real quick. Just back to the 2 lockouts on a 1 week timer. I agree, Ale. I actually interpreted it as that as well initially. That Ale thought when he first read it, it was like we just get 2 lockouts on a 1 week timer to use at your own discretion. People seem to be positive to that if it were the case. North, you're oohing.
I like that. I think that's brilliant. I don't know why I don't know. This thinking cap does nothing. I don't. That is
get
brilliant,
a fucking 6th brain cell, mate.
Yeah,
you run your double splits if you want to run your double splits, but if you want to run 1 week, one on the Tuesday, one on Saturday, it kind of works for you. I'm guessing that would be an engineering challenge having 2 per week, but I don't know how much of an engineering challenge. I don't expect it would be that difficult.
I wonder if it's tied in with partial lockouts, if you kill 5 of the 11 bosses in MC. What does that mean for your double lockout when you zone it again? And
as well, yeah, right. What does that look like? And then it would be an engineering challenge because it's you're resetting it on not a specific day. It's not resetting for everyone at the same time.
Then you have pugs where if you do an incomplete clear and your pug leader wants to keep the ID and somebody else wants to reset, and it becomes a logistical
It's a can of worms.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
It's a logistical nightmare with these mega pop servers that we are forced into now. If it was a smaller population, maybe it would be more feasible, but you're talking 50,000 characters.
Hey,
All that being said, I've heard engineers having minute time.
Could you not put in your raid info frame, just reset 1, reset 2, or ID 1, ID 2, and if you have a half cleared ID and you want to give it up because someone stole it, or you want to start with a fresh group, you just click an X on your professions, and you've deleted that reset.
Could work.
Let me
it would need a good amount of engineering though. I think is the issue that we're going to run into with that and that's the reason probably why they haven't done it. Maybe they didn't think of it either, but I think that the engineering challenge is there. I think there's a lot of bug squashing to do with that system.
Could be the talents though. They could make it the talents. When you respec your talents, you go and respec your ID for these 7 days, and that means you've given up your half cleared one. And you're fresh again.
Let me jump in, guys. Elianath, I'm so sorry, mate. I forgot to throw it to you before. Mate, pull a seat up to the table. Guys, I know some of you listeners aren't huge fans of these huge roundtable discussions that we have. I apologize if it's not quite your cup of tea. I know that there's a lot of times where you get 4 or 5 of us talking over the top of each other and try to see who's going to get in next. But, I mean, I quite like them. I think they're fun to do every now and again. We don't do them as often as we used to, but I do enjoy these ones. So I hope just allow me a little bit of flexibility on this one. But Elianath, sorry, mate. Jump in.
Oh, hey, no worries. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and unfortunately, I was a little late to comment on the dungeon system, and I just got somewhere that I need to go. So I might post a little bit more later, but I appreciate you letting me add a little bit here real quick. I think so I'm more of a casual player, much more limited time. I think the dungeon tokens are going to be amazing for somebody like me who's able to just hop into a guild run that ends up going in any particular dungeon on a day that I just happen to have time available, and know that it's not, just going to be Scarlet Monastery spammed over and over and over mindlessly. I did have two thoughts on it, though. One is, you all brought up earlier something about quality and quantity, and I sort of wonder how that's going to play out in terms of the quality of dungeon runs. Yeah, it's awesome that there's going to be more foot traffic to all of the different dungeons, but what's the quality of those runs going to be, knowing that it is essentially going to be token farming as well? And then on another point, in terms of some of the discussion about alt friendliness, I actually think that, again, for me, it's going to be extremely convenient that if I have some guildies that are going and they need me to fill a different role, and I've got an alt that can fill that role, I can pop into that dungeon and still get valuable things from that on the alt while I'm running through this phase, rather than having to sort of sacrifice time on an alt that I might not otherwise play. It's still giving me a lot of value to do that. So I just wanted to add those points in there.
Very good. Thanks for that, mate. Anyone on that one?
I have something
Josh,
to add.
if you... Oh,
Hang on.
sorry.
We'll go Kev, then Forded.
The way I see it, it's not something I see myself actively farming for those tokens. I see myself passively benefiting just from trying to farm Hand of Justice, maybe from trying to get Fell Striker. And that's how I kind of saw myself leveling to 60 anyway. But something that just dawned on me that I'm wondering now is, do we think there's a chance those tokens will be the currency for those ring runes?
Oh, could be, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I was just going to add in the fact that the tokens are going to be tied to the end bosses is really good, because right now you have the wild offerings, which you can spam.
They're tied to all bosses, aren't they?
All bosses.
All bosses, mate.
All bosses,
Yeah.
but the most, the end bosses are going to probably drop more. Or
we don't know. I didn't get that impression from what I read.
I didn't get that impression either, and the end bosses usually have the tier 0 on them in a lot of these cases, and I think that's sort of like the incentive for those.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why that they're going to tie in tier 0 from these. The reason why they use the word deterministic currency is because I think the big drop, when you think about what items you really need from dungeons, when you think about what they've re-incentivized and what they've sort of worked, is that the tier 0.5 very, very, very heavily encouraged, it seems. And so I think that's what we're going to see chiefly from gear. It might be some of the off pieces as well. Maybe there's a ring or a trinket, maybe Briarwood reeds on it or something like that. But I think that's most of what we'll see.
I was just more getting at that in most of these dungeons, Strath and Skolo specifically, you can't get to the end boss and get those big tier 0 drops until you complete the entire dungeon. So there's no real skipping of it. So I like that they're adding this token system, and I like that they're keeping the tier 0 drops, the big slots like shoulders, head, and chest on the end bosses.
Guys, let me shift gears again. Like I said, there's so much to talk about, so we might move on to the next topic if that's okay. The one big thing that we haven't discussed on the podcast yet is this Blackrock Mountain event, the Blackrock Explosion or whatever it is. I want to do a big let's wait and see with this one, and maybe you guys can help sort of talk me off the ledge here, but like I am in wait and see mode. I really am, but a part of my brain is like, Josh, you're smart enough to be able to look on paper and sort of predict whether this thing is going to work or not. And I want to be told I'm being overly skeptical on this one, because Arcos's point from a couple of weeks ago keeps ringing in my ears about, Blackrock Mountain had organic PvP anyway. Are we really going to shove a lot of people into a relatively small space that will push not only the technical aspect of the servers, but also just, it's a small space. Like if we're just throwing everyone in there every 2 hours, it's pretty full on. And look, it could be amazing. It really could. And I'm trying not to prejudge too much. I'm just that the PvP player in me doesn't feel like it sounds like a fun time that people think it's going to be.
Did you read through the event and like what it specifically entails, or did you not?
I did. I mean, remind me. All I know, it's a pretty simple event. It's just double honor inside the mountain. That's it. No honor outside the mountain.
Yeah, and so it's giving you quests outside the mountain. So it's trying to truncate that. It's like, hey, we're putting quests here inside the mountain. Or sorry, quests here outside the mountain, and we're reducing your honor gain to disincentivize you from griefing these quests, because we want people just, hey, it's incursion style stuff, it's a daily, we want you to do this daily out there. And then in the mountain, there's going to be some nonsense going on, but nothing directly incentivized. Hey, if you want to go PvP there during that time, you can. It's going to make PvP more interesting during these times. Right? I don't think that it's actually like, it's not an event where it's like, hey, you really have to go to Blackrock Mountain. But if you're in Blackrock Mountain while the event is happening, and if it's going to happen every couple of hours, it's probably going to be the case, because most guilds do this. You raid a specific hour, it's probably going to be the case that your trip into Molten Core, into the mountain, is going to fall when there are like meteors and shit falling down from the sides, and like there's increased honor gain. I think that could be very cool. I don't think it's an event where it's like, hey, you really should be going into the mountain to PvP right now. I don't think it's going to look like that. I don't think anyone really...
Here's my thing. Whoa. Let me say my one last point, then you guys go ballistic.
Sure.
Here's my thing, North. And this is where all the fucking angry YouTube comments will come out. And don't get me started on fucking what I've thought of Twitter and YouTube comments recently, and the kind of people that make fucking some of the bad ones. But anyway, look, I had this chat with Hunk at the pub last week, and we were just sort of talking about it, going, we just feel weird about it, which is weird for me because I'm such a PvP lover, and people were like, well, maybe you don't like PvP as much as you fucking say you do. But like, you know me, I like, testing my strength against other people, not just walking into Gangfest. And people were like, well, that's fucking WoW PvP. Get used to it, dickhead. I remember Phase 1, Phase 2, we're on a server that is like, it says it's 50-50, even though we don't feel like it is. I feel like it's reasonably alliance slated. I think the devs disagree with me. All I can go by is Fieldscraft. I'm so sorry. When the Horde on the OCE server was going to be FD and Gnomragon in Phase 1 and Phase 2, any fucking night of the week, there was a wall of alliance just stopping us, going like, if you want to get in this raid, you will be corpse hopping, my friend. Fine, whatever, be that way. My weird part is, and Hunk agreed with me on this one, is why are we now going to incentivize being a cockhead where you and your 20 mates go, we're sitting outside the instance and fucking no one gets in on our watch. And people go, oh, that's amazing, classic player engagement and shit. And like, look, mass PvP is fun and all, but we're now rewarding people for being cunts. And I'm like, I feel a little weird about it. Tell me why I'm wrong, North.
It's the best reward, man.
It's here's the thing, right? Like, it's going to incent. You have now a reason to. Previously, right, there was no real reason to engage in that PvP. You're not getting significant honor from it. Camping the mountain was the thing you did for fun, just to grief people. Now there's an incentive, and so more people are going to do it, yes, but then more people are going to go wipe the people doing it. You create this organic fight inside if people are going to go do it, and people are incentivized to do it. But I think it's more focused on pushing people out of Syrian Gorge during this time, because you're going to get no honor from it. And so it's removing that incentive while they're being like, hey, then go inside here. And you will have people who don't care about the dailies, maybe, or do the dailies, and later on in the day they just want to sit there while the meteors are falling and gank people in the mountain. And maybe the mechanics that they add will disincentivize some of the camping. Maybe the meteors that are chilling there are enough that it's going to keep you in combat, because currently they are, but maybe that is changed. And it's going to prevent you from being able to just kind of sit there indefinitely, and it's going to create a more king of the hill push and pull type of situation where it's not going to be super easy to grief the hell out of you. Also, you're saying, yeah, they're going to be cunts. There's now a graveyard inside of the mountain. It's not nearly as bad, the run back. So they're reducing some of the pain points of it while encouraging an activity that people really, really cherish. They really find it fun. They really find it very interesting, even if there are no world buffs to grief now because of Chrono Boon. Now there's a reason to go there. People, hated Chrono Boon for that reason. It's like, hey, this kills this mountain PvP. Give us a reason to do something that people found the most fun. I love PvP inside the mountain. PvP inside the mountain, especially small-scale PvP. I'm not a huge fan of mass-scale PvP. I'm like you in that way. I don't think it's all that interesting. And so hopefully they have some organic systems that are going to disincentivize. Hopefully the meteors target these groups. Hopefully people are stacked right at the entrance. These meteors are just, hey, there's 40 people. That would be the ideal world. Hey, there's 40 people sitting in this thing. This is the mountain event. We're just going to chuck meteors at you every 2 seconds. You're going to have to spread out. This is going to be a bit chaotic for you. Give the underdog a chance if they're just going to sit there and mass and Zerg. And a lot of people talk about that in sandbox PvP games where, hey, give reasons to disincentivize the Zerg. I hope that they can accomplish that. I think that would be very clever.
Those entrances are going to be camped by hordes of frost mages.
But there's also there's less of a reason as well, because now, hey, yeah, you go into the mountain, you die in the mountain, you probably res behind those people, which creates a different dynamic where it's not, hey, you can only enter through this one way, and then once you've entered, you have to come back to your corpse the same route every time. Now you're in the middle of it, right? So you die once going in, maybe you die 2 more times, but it's not a situation where you're dying 8, 9, 10 times. Because that's what happened in Classic. You could sit there and you could camp a group for, you could kill them 10 times. You can kill them 12 times.
Hopefully if you die to PvP, you can come back with full health.
And that would be clever. That would be clever. That would be a great solution as well. They just have to tune some numbers there, and they can really make it work for more people. Because if they make it so, hey, you res full health, now you've got the King of the Hill, now you've got the push and pull, now you have a reason why this group can't just indefinitely sit there, especially if your res time is lower, and then you have the pure chaos of the mountain reborn. And that's
I mentioned that in the feedback on PTR is like you gotta give the resers full health,
an advantage. Yeah, you gotta give them something.
An advantage, but also not put them at a disadvantage by going up against somebody when you're at half health and they have full.
And they're full buffed, they're
exactly.
Surely we have graveyards in the mountain during the event, like in STV, and there's no res timer, or there's that lockout period.
If that's the case, then you guys are helping talk me off the ledge. So thank you. If that is the case.
Also... Yeah, well, they have 2 They have 2 more weeks to fine tune and put these things in.
And they're looking for that feedback. That's the kind of thing that they want to hear. Sorry, go ahead.
Arcos, were you going to say something? No, you got nothing. All right, this was your topic. This was your baby. Sorry, go, mate. Well. Go, Manny.
Yeah, we just need to wait and see. Still, that's my position.
All right, fair enough. Go,
I think
Manny.
My worries are still fair, but on that point, I'm gonna fuck off and go to bed.
All right, mate. Good night. We'll talk to you later. Thanks for stopping by. Manny, hit me.
I was just going to say it's a little thing in MMOs, but I like anything that incentivizes you entering the instance with your group. I'm a big fan of that. Whether it's a dungeon group, it's awesome when you get, you're like, let's group up the flight path and head in because there's going to be PvP going on. And if it's a raid, even better. I hated the summon minigame where people are glitched inside walls and stuff like that and summoning your raid in. I loved it in phase 1 when you would mount the Griffin and, you get your train of 40 people, in this case 20 people going together. And you're fighting your way into the mountain.
I agree. I'm with you.
It's a little MMO thing. So
I agree.
So if there's chaos, I love that.
I'm totally with you. And I don't want people to think that like I'm this fucking guy who loves PvP but is actually afraid of a fight. No. If my group sees a group guarding the entrance, I want to be like in voice chat with my boys going, oh, it's fucking game on, boys. 100% I would love to do that. The issue is that I find that seldom happens, and obviously people would retort, well, you need to find better friends or a better guild, Josh, and that's a fair comment to make. But like the amount of times recently where, and this hunk knows I went ballistic at my old guild about this, nothing infuriated me more just for the fucking cowardice and complete pussy behavior, where we would run in as a 40-man guild in our 4 groups of 10 in phase 1, and there's 30 alliance blockading the entrance to BFD, and Hunk and I were like, all right guys, let's group up, run in together and wipe them. almost everyone in my guild was like, nah, fuck that. Everyone just go in individually and just corpse walk. And we're like, you fucking pussies. Like, this is what the game is about. This is the kind of, player created content you can't replicate. Like, this is going to be fun. We go in and we try to beat them. Nah, man, I'm just here for passes. Can we just fucking get this over and done with? Like, I lost so much faith in WoW players when I saw those kinds of like responses. So I just
then if you're there just for parses, then go join a PvE server. That's where that sentiment comes from. If you don't want PvP or you can't deal with PvP on your raid night, then don't join a PvP server.
Yeah, what I like about this Blackrock Eruption thing is that they incentivize it a little bit. So if you're in your 5-man group running into BRD and you see some combat going on, you might think to yourself, you know what, it is, maybe it's somebody who wouldn't typically join in, but they're like, oh shit, I'm trying to rank a little bit here. Let me join in. We'll wipe this group. But they're not incentivizing it so much that it's going to be the only thing people do for honor. Like, it's probably not going to be, replacing pre-made BGs or AV grinding or, so like it's not going to be enough, especially because it's only periodic. So I think it's incentivizing people a little bit to engage in this, but not so much that it's like it's going to be completely a toxic shit show.
While simultaneously pushing people out of Gorge, I think is the important part to kind of look at their vision and let them cook on that. They're trying to push people out of Gorge because they understand the PvP is around there very frequently, and they want people to be able to be not completely untouched, but maybe a little safer during those windows for those dailies and do those dailies together. So I think that in tandem makes a lot of sense.
It also depends on what the bonus honor is going to be.
Yeah.
Compared to your normal.
I think didn't they say double, or am I going crazy?
They said bonus. They didn't say double.
Oh, okay, all right.
But bonus honor compared to BGs, the bonus, the honor per hour, the PvP rankers are always going to gravitate to what's the best honor per hour. If Blackrock Eruption becomes the best honor per hour every 2 hours, where do you think the rankers are going to be? They're going to be there trying to get all the honor kills that they can.
It's only super true that rankers need to optimize around honor per hour when it's a zero-sum old ranking system, right? Like you have to do what's good for honor per hour when it's,
Well, you have to do it the first couple of weeks if you want your gear right away. That's what people are going to want. That's what people are going to want.
Well,
yeah,
but I think they're going to have tokens dash.
Yeah.
The SCV event.
I think.
That's if they allow us. That's if they allow us to hand in tokens this time. They've talked about depreciating those on launch, so that the previous phase does not account towards your next phase.
I mean, that's probably a good thing to do. But I think also it just increases. I think you're right, though. I don't think it's going to be the thing that where, the most hardcore of the hardcore want it for the most honor per hour. I don't think that's ever really going to be the case. And I hope it isn't the case because it would be a bad incentive. It would be too much of an incentive. But I think for like the average PvP enjoyer, the average world PvP enjoyer, it's like, hey, let's get my 10 buddies. Let's go to the mountain. Let's go wipe some people here. You kind of have it where it's the, hey, it's the blood moon, but this is inside the mountain doing, like faction versus faction stuff. And so it's not just, hey, die res, get to the altar. I've got my little currency. No, it is actually for honor, and it's in a place that's iconic for World of Warcraft players. I think it could work. I think it probably won't be that important, and people won't super care about it, and it'll just be kind of a footnote. But I think it'll be a good footnote. And I think that's...
Amen.
Yeah.
Guys, a couple of quick fun ones. Pretty much, they said... we're getting a new dungeon. Any guesses as to what it is? I mean, Kara Crypts would be my first guess. Anyone want to throw their hat in?
They've talked about Kara Crypts being a raid later on.
Have they? Or as opposed to just showing the slideshow?
With the goblin loot that they've teased.
Yeah.
Yeah. The goblin loot that they've teased, somebody brought up in SoD chat the other day. It being in Teneris on one of those lesser used peninsulas down at the southern tip of Teneris, and put a pirate themed dungeon down there.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other guesses?
They had the frames in the video. Sorry, go Mandalore.
No, you're right, Manny. Oh, sorry, I've got him on mute. Give me 1 sec. Mandalore, was he trying to say something? Sorry,
Yes.
sorry, mate. You were making some background noise before, so I muted you. Go nuts.
Out at work now. The video is showing Demon Scar Vale, the data mine shade of Gorehow. Looks like that may be one of the new weapons that they've put in. Something to do with Grom's monument.
Demon theme, right? There you go.
So you're thinking the Veiled Scar in Nashville?
Yes.
Ooh, that's what it
that
like.
would be.
Well, that would tie into the shadowy figure that we've all been communicating.
And Broxigar's axe, wouldn't it? Right? Because Broxigar died fighting Targaryen, right? So it's very demon related, right?
And it would give us another demon instance. We don't really get a whole lot of those.
Plus, there are goblins nearby that there are shredders nearby, so that could tie into. I think a lot of it. I think it was too South Sea-ish though, so I don't think that fully encapsulates it. I wonder where that stuff is going to be, if it is going to be the Ashen Veil stuff.
Maybe they make it tied to the Gadget Stand Ratchet Booty Bay rep, and they actually make it rep rewarded now.
Interesting.
That shredder mount and everything incentivizes
they added a shredder mount. I didn't see all this. There's a shredder mount.
Well, not necessarily a mount. There was a new shredder model that was data mined, though. It could have been a mount. It might be like a boss model or something like that too.
Probably
but it's
like
different than any of the ones that are currently in the game.
But it did not have an NPC in the driver's seat.
Yeah,
it would be so sick.
Ubiquitous is guessing down the south of Winterspring.
Oh, might use the portal in the south. Wait, that the Veiled. Yeah. Ooh. I remember like I gave some feedback and I was like, use the Veiled Scar like this, or use the south of Winterspring. It is such a cool area. No one ever has a real reason to go there unless they're farming, runes as
stuff there too.
There is tier 0.5 stuff there as well.
And there's the Silithus Scepter quest that takes place down there too.
True, but I'm saying average player, right? Like especially this phase, they have no real good reason to be down there, and I like that place being sensitive. I think Winterspring is a really cool zone. I think having people in that area is cool. I think having
it would make more sense.
If they add a graveyard near there, I'm all for it.
I'm
not for trying to get to that place and getting PvP camped on the way to the instance and having a 45-minute run back.
The dads would riot. Classic WoW subreddit would be in flames.
Right. Burn it all down at that point.
All right. Anyone else on that one before we move on? Let me know.
I just think the South Seas thing is particularly interesting because there were a lot of different goblin things that doesn't correspond with what they mentioned in the video, or like what they showed in the video. There was a whole bunch of different items, and what was interesting about those is that they ranged in level as well, which generally speaking kind of teases towards a dungeon, because that's kind of one of Classic's things, is that you've got a range of levels. From the start to the end. So I think that stuff, and the fact that they didn't specifically mention anything about it in the video, I think that still kind of remains something that's interesting that I'll be looking for as we get closer.
I've had enough pirate shit. I'm ready for some fucking metal demon shit.
Where do you have any plans to talk about the Ashbringer, Josh?
Oh
yeah, what about it?
Come on, man.
I don't know. I think they're actually putting it in. I don't think it's a meme.
Oh,
I don't think they would bait people by putting that in. I think that we're going to see the Ashbringer in Scarlet Monastery. I think
I wouldn't
be
be shocked in the fucking slightest. I almost expect it.
In Scarlet Monastery,
I do expect
or
as well.
in Tyr's Hand in some sort of new.
Well, I expect it to interact with the Scarlet Monastery.
Okay.
Right? I expect there to be an interaction between the Scarlet, because you have what a great opportunity to have the Ashbringer and have a Scarlet Monastery raid, because you can really expand on that. Maybe you have to, like maybe you're talking
maybe
to
not
someone
even the
in
raid, but just expand on live strat dungeon.
True.
On the bastion area.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room there, and I think people love that item, and I think that's just an easy crowd win if people can get an Ashbringer. I think people would be really the Red Paladins are a voracious sort, and I think they would be.
But all the enhancement shamans would be crying. But
and all the melee hunters, the melee hunters would just be trying to use Ashbringer instead of using 2 one-handers.
But we don't get 2-handed swords for enhancement.
Hey.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You've got Broxkar's axe, bro. It's the coolest. Even if it sucks in terms of DPS, bro, that is the coolest item lore-wise to probably ever exist. So
And what Mandalore just posted in the chat there too. The Shadow of Gorehowl. That thing looks like it could be something that's pretty
absolutely.
sick too.
And obviously, like, guys, we'll talk more about this on like part 2 of this podcast on Friday night. But over 1,000 updated and new items coming into the game in Phase 4. The devs have put in a fucking disgusting amount of work. So things like Shadow of Gorehowl, you know, updated fucking Arcanite Reapers and whatnot. It's all happening. It really is all happening. It is time to get excited for Phase 4.
And let's just remember all the spirit stuff that was in the game before, and they've been updating all that. Oh, it's so juicy.
Can I ask a question? How many people, or do we think people are more excited about Phase 4 now, based on what we've seen, or are they like a bit muted?
I think they're more excited, but I do think that I think SoD has just lost a lot of eyeballs. So it's not a matter of people seeing it and being like, oh, fuck that. I just think people have stopped looking. But I mean, I hope it brings back a big crowd. I truly do. I wouldn't imagine that we're going to see the numbers of Phase 1 again, though. I just think that like it will get a resurgence, but I think that, I don't know, the seasonal aspect of these servers, like, there's still, everything's an experiment. Everything's a work in progress. They're learning more every day. It'll be really interesting to see what comes next, just because like it is sort of like, I don't know, some, you know, Season of Mastery went through a similar thing to a harsher degree, but you know, it did lose a lot of interest as the season went on. I'm having a blast with SoD, but like I am seeing Warcraft logs numbers coming in, and like I know they're not official, but you can see a fucking noticeable downward tick in numbers. But like for the people that it is being made for, we're having a good time. So fucking whatever. What do I care? What I will say is, does anyone else want to say anything on that?
Yeah, I think this is where like the Classic Plus story can kind of like fan out more. Like this is where it's level 60. This is where, you know, Karazhan Crypts, Scarlet Monastery raid, like all the stuff leading up to it was like revamped. But this is where we're going to get a lot of the new content, I think. And I think that will bring a lot of people in or bring people back.
Yeah.
Tom.
Sorry, you go.
You got many.
The activity in Stormwind, Ironforge, and out in the world right now, since the announcement, has tripled. Like we are getting a lot
today?
more activity.
You mean today?
Yeah, today.
Oh, okay, that's good. Mandalore, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, timing-wise, I guess they're a rough spot. Like, get what rolling, Kata, SoD, then retail, Final Fantasy around the corner as well. There's going to be a lot of people.
7 o'clock tonight. We're 7 hours away from fucking Dawn Trail launching.
The community is very split already between the 3 different versions, and now we're going to have that coming out as well. Like, I see the hype getting high, but Crash might be just as much. Like you say, it's not going to be Phase 1 people.
Oh fuck! I'll see some of you on Dawn Trail there. I play on a Japanese server though. All right, there was something else I wanted to bring up.
Just to jump in while you're thinking there, I'm thinking it might not necessarily get the eyes, like this news might not get the hype that you'll see, but I think you will see a lot of people logging in for Phase 4 launch, and I think you'll see a lot of people that you maybe didn't expect to see, and I think people are gonna have a lot of fun with it. Like that pre-bis phase is so much fun. I think North was saying that's like the best part of any.
It's the best part. It's the best part, and the streamers, they fiend for the content. They live for the content. Guess where they're going to be? They're going to be where the content is. It's the new version. They're going to be there, and it's going to be, if it's fun, right? Like, if it's fun, the people will come. People will come if it's fun.
And I think this is going to be where a paced up, like, MC or 2 lockouts, you know, like, it's going to come at you quick. You know, you're going to get through your previous grind, and you're going to be blasting right into MC, and then, you know, 2-3 days later, you're going to be doing it again. I think we might see, like Gally said, a little bit of that kind of classic plus. Like people are going to be like, holy shit, like this is pretty good. Maybe it doesn't get the eyeballs, maybe it doesn't get the hype that Phase 1 did, but I think we might see something pretty good with this this phase 4.
And I get why it won't receive the hype that it should, but I think that it's important to recognize. We were saying this way back at the start. We were saying this way back at the start. It was like, hey, it's such a great idea for them to do these little phases like the 25, the 40, the 50. It's really clever that they're doing this. And then everyone had the caveat of, because then they can test things for the real game at 60, because everyone knows that vanilla is about level 60, unless you're talking about like the hardcore journey from 1 to 60. But we don't have that here. We have accelerated leveling. We have different nonsense. It's a different game. It's a different adventure, right? But everyone, to my knowledge, at least, was looking forward to, okay, what are they going to cook up so that at 60, this is going to be really interesting and cool, and what are they going to test, and what are they going to find, and what are they going to discover themselves as developers. And I think that we've seen them discover quite a lot. I think that we've seen them try quite a few things. And so it seems to me, I get why people are frustrated with the game a little bit. I get why people have stopped playing it. I get why it might not get the eyes at the start, and it won't get the player count that was in phase 1. It's just too easy to have a 1 to 25, brand new thing, get everyone involved with 10-man raids, right? And we don't need to see that level of success for it to be good. But I think people who are counting it out are a bit short-sighted. I think that we knew this from the start. I think we knew that this was going to be the make or break for Classic Plus. The story starts here. It starts on July 11th. Right? Like, this is where the real task begins. And I hope that the team, I've liked a lot of the stuff they've been cooking up. I hope it's everything that they want it to be, because I think it could be really
There's
cool.
just too much to talk. Go, Wonder.
I was going to say, I hope so, because it's the concern with why I raised the question is, I mean, we spoke about this before, Josh, is the population on Shadowstrike is just fucking abysmal.
Well, on that point, I was
watching this going, I don't know if this information is really going to energize a lot of the people to go, fuck yeah, I'm back, let's go.
I think it will some. I do. Like, I've been saying, look, I've played a disgusting amount of SoD over the last 2 weeks. As you guys know, I've basically been like copy pasting my Oceanic account or characters to now a new fresh start on an US server. So I've
could have done it on Crusader Strike. Could have played with me. Terrified.
I know. I actually have. I have a lot of good reasoning why, and I thought about it. It wasn't an easy decision to make. I've had people say, why didn't you play on Crusader Strike, Josh? Look, I really thought long and hard about it, and there was a lot of good reasons as to why I didn't pick Crusader Strike. I won't get too deep in the weeds here, but just look, I tried both, and Lone Wolf felt better. It got described as the dad server, and Crusader Strike is a bit more of the streamer server, and it certainly felt that way. Attitudes are very different on Lone Wolf, and people are like, oh, well, if fucking max level characters aren't ganking you on Lone Wolf, then what's the fucking point? It's a PvP server, bro. And I'm like, no, that's why I like it. People aren't being PvP dicks. They're waiting till you get to max level and then fucking gaming, doing the game on thing. I've had more opposite faction helping me in the last 10 days on Lone Wolf than I have in the last 5 years. Like, it's crazy. Like,
no. See, that's like the Flames fans and the Oilers fans again, though. What the fuck are they doing helping you?
No, but that's what I'm saying. It was weird. It was weird. I mean, I just appreciated not being ganked.
I think that's the vibe in general. Like, I've been leveling my rogue, past couple days. Everyone's pretty peaceful out in the world right now. Like, people aren't playing this game to be PvP Andes. It's really not the vibe. And I think if people can kind of carry that forward and understand that a bit more, I think that there's a risk that people will start griefing the Thorium event and the Searing Gorge event. And they're like, haha, it's because we don't need to do anything. We're just here to ruin other people's time. I think that is actually a really bad thing in WoW. I think that's a really bad thing in WoW. I think that people do it too often because they're just like, hey, it's funny that this person is dead now. And it can be, it can be. It can be funny ganking someone, but, I think that we all, at the end of the day, I think it's more fun when people are, intentional with their PvP.
Yeah.
I think it is a better experience.
And but like, don't get me wrong, I want to get to max and gear my character up for the purpose of world PvP. You guys know my big thing. I do it on stream a lot.
Go to Felwood.
Is one-on-one world PvP. It's the dream for me. I like being a PvP fucking degenerate, but like, I just appreciate that they sort of were not pricks about it. I don't know. And a lot of people only think of WoW PvP as your opportunity to be a prick. And when I always say there's more to it than that, people don't get it. But anyway. Hey, Rhett, I'm so sorry, mate. You with us now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, mate. You've been patiently listening this whole time. You probably have a million things you want to chime in on. Go nuts.
Yeah, I've already forgot everything I was gonna say. No, I'm kidding. Couple things since y'all had went over some topics. Ashbringer, if they bring that in, as long as they just don't disappoint and make it like a welfare legendary or something, make it something really cool, difficult to get, something that you don't see on every corner. Going kind of notching back to the talk about the Blackrock Mountain thing. On paper, sounds really cool. Love everything about it. If anybody played STV in the opening weeks where it was just like operationally an epic failure from like layering and all that, that's my only concern. I can imagine running into your raid and disconnecting 16 different times and getting camped on top of that. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. And I'm a ultra lover of PvP.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
The game has to work for me to like PvP. If the game is fundamentally broken, then that's a whole nother problem.
I think they should line up the Blackrock event with the STV event. I actually think that would be a good thing, because then it's kind of forced. Like, I think when it comes to like, you know, the turbo honor farmers, I think that actually is the best honor. I think STV is the best honor. I could be wrong on that.
They said they wanted
they
want it to be a decent supplementary option for honor.
Yeah, so I think if it's like, hey, I don't like STV, I want to go here and do this, and like I'm more in it for the fun, I can do that. But then you kind of keep the sweats that are really concerned about the most honor possible in another zone. I think that might be beneficial, but it also might be nice to have events going all the time. I'm not sure, but I think I just feels crafting out a bit. I think that would be good to then force the sweats to choose. So that say, hey, I want to go murder people in the mountain, or I want to get my most optimal honor per hour.
Yeah.
Maybe that's bad. Also, I would need to think about it. I need to reflect a bit more.
I think based on the timing, every second one would be lined up with STV, just because they said every 2 hours for Blackrock.
Oh, every 2 versus every 6. Oh, interesting. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Rhett, let me know what else you got. Oh, by the way, Rhett, you're a Tennessee man or what?
Yeah.
Oh, man, your fucking boy, Dalton Connect, going to my Lakers, falling to 17. I am very happy with the state of Tennessee right now.
Yeah, I work in Nashville.
Mate, what else you got on the WoW front?
That's really it. The PvP thing sounds really cool. My only worry is just that, and I'm not a computer science engineer, whatever, just do they have the horsepower and hardware to make that event work? That's my main concern with that.
All right.
Because if they don't, you know, I know on the Australian server maybe STV wasn't a total dumpster fire, but on Crusader Strike, like half my guild decided to never do STV again because it was so bad and we gave it so many tries.
It was unplayable.
That's fair.
Let me come back to that Oceanic Point Wonder that we were just talking about before, and this is kind of like a point that might extend to a lot of SoD servers right now, because I am getting into, like I said, I've been getting into a lot of fights the last few days. Just I've cracked the shits with a certain segment of WoW player that I've ignored for a long time, and I've just decided, you know what, fuck that, I'm going to start punching back, and I've just been a really obnoxious cunt. Just finally giving it back to people on certain points. But anyway, a lot of the points we're getting are, SoD is dead. And like I said, I concede SoD is much quieter than it was. The numbers are right there for everyone to see on the Warcraft log site, even though they're unofficial. I get it. But I have hope and faith for Phase 4. And like we're saying, we hope more eyes come back, streamers pull people back in, and it turns into a thing. On the Oceanic front, Wonder, I realized the devs would probably hear you say that server, and I said it last week, the server's dead. You know, I was sort of, I would walk it back slightly now, because like I said, I'm not saying this because the devs would get upset, but like I conceded this point to someone else the other day where I was like, Shadow Strike is realistically, it's fine, but it is low pop. It just is. It's. I was logging on. There was no one in Orgrimmar at prime time. It was weird. I didn't like the vibe. I decided to get out of there. The Warcraft log numbers are fine, to the point that I'm sure the devs look at it and go, "No, look, there's people logging on and raiding, and that's a respectable enough number. They'll be fine." But I just don't. share that optimism over that number, nor what it could potentially grow into in phase 4. So I elected to jump ship to America. I got into a massive fight with a friend over this who didn't appreciate me advertising to Oceanic players to, he thought I was trying to tell them to leave their server. That wasn't my intention. I was telling my mates that, my group of 3 or 4 mates that I play SOD with that, hey, let's go play somewhere else. And whether they come or not is up to them. But like, I feel for Shadow Strike and I hope it thrives in phase 4. It's not like I don't want it to do well. I want it to do amazingly well. But personally, I got to a point where I saw what I saw. I experienced a certain thing in Season of Mastery, and I'm not going to have that happen to me again. So I made a decision for my best time in Season of Discovery. So yeah, I'm just kind of rambling, Wonder.
Look, I mean, I think the reality is that in an MMO, you need population in the game to sustain enjoyment for the majority of players. There are going to be some set of players that are quite happy to do things by themselves. But if I have to spend, 40 minutes looking for a dungeon group, like, holy shit, this is ridiculous.
And in saying that though, like, population is great and it's wonderful, and that's why we call it massively multiplayer games. My thing is always, we don't call them multiplayer games, we call them massively multiplayer games. You need servers with the population. But in saying that, you don't need the largest server. You really don't. I mean, fuck, if I want
you just need a healthy one.
Exactly.
And people logging in and actively participating in the game.
Yeah, I mean, fuck, I played on Yojamba for a year and a half. I walked away from Aragorn to go to Yojamba. I chose Lone Wolf over Crusader Strike. Like, you don't need the biggest, you just need a good pop. And it can still be low-ish pop, it just can't be low pop.
Look, I mean, I was on Yojamba from Classic to Wrath when I stopped playing. And part of the reason I stopped playing was because the server was struggling. And literally the week after I stopped, all of the free transfers opened up to
because the numbers came in.
Because it just wasn't really viable for it to continue. And that's kind of the position that Yojamba feels like it's in.
You mean Shadow Strike?
Sorry, Shadow Strike feels like it's in now. Now,
I personally don't think it's there yet, but I think it's getting close.
Probably gone a little bit too long, so I feel like it's a bit rough to, throw the server in the trash can just yet.
Yeah.
But
I think it'll recover just fine. Yeah, I don't expect it to be an issue. This server is just Aggrend told people to take a break, man. Literally, he said, "Hey, stop playing."
And that's what I'm saying. They'll come back for phase 4, and it will be fine.
Put it this way, North. I logged on for a normal raid time. There was one guild at a normal raid time at Stonard ready to roll out. One. The one I was in. Nobody else. So, like, when you put it in that sort of context, it's like, oh, Jesus, maybe it's not that healthy. And okay, people are going to come back. But, like, even if it was just for our guild, looking to recruit new people, we want people that are going to be relatively committed to playing. And if they haven't already swapped to a guild that's still running, it's kind of like, my God, we're running out of potential options in the future. So, I don't know. It's something that I'm actively concerned about. I don't know whether I'd make the swap to a US server myself. I'm probably more likely to go, the server's dying, I'm going to stop. Which I don't want to do.
Well, the problem will be, what would the more likely scenario, like you described with Yojamba, is if for whatever reason the numbers do continue to dip on the Oceanic server, it would get to a critical mass to the point that Blizzard does step in and offer free character transfers. And then we literally get SOM 2.0, where the people that are happy playing in their tiny little server go ballistic that Blizzard offers free character transfers and murders their server and gets upset at the people that take the fucking transfer offer, which is just a take that I disagree with.
Yeah, well, I think it's the fact that they give us 2 servers, PvE and PvP.
Yeah.
I think that's the fuck up.
It's the fact that it's the point that they give us any fucking servers. It's almost like I've been saying for 2 years to stop giving Oceania servers for smaller versions of the game. And every fucking Oceanic player hates my guts for saying that. But anyway.
I can't even imagine what it's like on the Australian server. I'm on Crusader Strike Alliance. The guild I was in, like early phase 2, we were running like 8 or 9 10-man raid teams. I mean, there would be 50 to 100 people online at any given time. And this past Tuesday, I did a Sunken Temple with 15 people, and one guy was dual boxing. And that's the only raid going on in the entire guild. So I don't even want, and that's on Crusader Strike Alliance.
Yeah, and we have two. Polar was running. I think at the start of this phase, we were running. I think we had 18 20-man raids running under Polar at the start of this phase, and now we have 2. And the second one, and ours, the main one, like this is like the Prague run. It's like the it's the Golden Path run.
Flagship.
Yeah, we're like, yeah. Any fills? Anyone? Like, anyone want to come in? We're missing 4 people this week.
I'll tell you what. I'm not a hardcore player, but I would say I like difficult content. I don't want it to be stupidly punishing, but I like a good, healthy challenge. You want to talk about doing Sunken Temple with 14 and a half players? Tuesday night, it was actually a challenge. Because
that's fun. That's
right?
fun. I imagine it would be a lot more similar to the Prague Sunken Temple, which I really liked in terms of difficulty. After it was like the first pass was first pass was crazy. Doing the ooze boss for 10 minutes was wild. Doing Morphaz or whatever the first 2 dragons are, doing that boss for 13 minutes was crazy. That is, obviously they made their errors.
How did your healers stay sane?
That's a great question. The people who had a ton of gold in our guild were just buying the mana potions the whole time. So it was a group effort. We would not have survived without the I don't know where their gold comes from. It might be unsavory sources of this gold, but we do what we have to do. It is what it is.
I say doing the 14.5-man Sunken Temple, we had like a couple newbies too. Like, it wasn't like all 14 is just bissed out, right? We had a couple guys who had just come back. So like we were
honestly, your Iranicus was probably fun. The
Iranicus, I'm a prop paladin. I swapped off and I bubbled and started healing the only other tank that we had, and it came down. We had 3 or 4 people left. If the fight went another 5 seconds, we probably would have all died.
So we did something similar like that in our guild 2 weeks ago on Morphaz. He died, and literally we had 1 second left on the phase 1 timer, and he died, and we had 5 people left.
I'll jump in and just say one last thing. Mandalore, you can yell at me for this. I probably need an Australian to say something nasty to me to make up for all the people listening at home who want it said. But I was just going to finish off with like saying this to Wonder, like, if we had not gotten Shadow Strike, all the Australians or all the Oceanic players would have rolled on Lone Wolf, the West Coast PvP server. It would be the same size as Crusader Strike, and it would be a 24-hour server, and it would have been fantastic.
24-hour servers are underrated. Like private servers, a great thing from them was how 24-hour they were. They always felt alive. I really liked that.
Mandalore, rip into
it's
me.
Something
mate.
I haven't experienced, right? I don't think I've ever played on a server that's fully 24 hours. Like as soon as it hits roughly 11 o'clock, we're done.
Call me a prick, Mandalore, for saying don't do Oceanic servers.
I can't, because I understand it completely. Growing up playing Blackrock. Yeah.
Fair enough. Mate, we're gonna buy you a new mic for the next one.
Let's start a GoFundMe or a GDKP to buy him a mic.
Exactly.
I'm about 150k away from the closest computer at the moment.
Oh, that'll do it. No, good fucking mate. And doing the Lord's work, calling into the show anyway. I fucking respect it. Look, guys, we will start to wind it up. I think we'll have to do the class stuff on Friday night. But North, just look, I know you've spoken a bunch during this one and we've loved you for it. But I might just ask you just to chime in real quick on the Mage stuff if you've seen it.
I have.
Yeah, Mage PTR. Look, guys, I'll just say this much. Obviously, we had FarQ talking about mages on the podcast last week. FarQ absolutely conceded. He's only new to SoD. He hadn't played that much of Mage. A few of you wrote in and said, "Oh, Josh, can we have another stab at Mage? We didn't get that deep because FarQ hadn't played it so long." He conceded that he's all on board with it. He knows that there's more to speak about, so we will just touch on it a little bit more here. North, you said you've been healing on a Mage. We've got these changes today on the PTR and changes last week and everything. Give us all the takes.
So I think that they're trying to actually. How much can I say of this? I'll have to say something to you off air about one of the changes, which I find very interesting. Okay. But Overheat probably needed to be nerfed. I'm a little annoyed by it. I think it's too much of a nerf. I think
So it's a 15-second cooldown now for those who don't know.
I understand why it's 15. Yeah, so it moved from essentially what was, I guess, 8 technically to 15. Is it 8 baseline or is it 10?
Isn't it 8?
I think it's 8. I'm pretty sure it's 8. And then obviously you have the talent to reduce it, which then is interesting because you want it reduced. And so with its old CD, it was too strong. With improved Fire Blast, you can reduce it by 1.5 seconds, and so you are dealing with a 6.5 second cooldown where you're going to be triggering a hot streak really, really, really frequently. I think 15 is too much in the opposite direction. I think that we'll see Mage be exceptionally weak, and it doesn't bring a lot of utility in reality outside of that. It's not like now Rogue brings it has this poison thing. Mage doesn't brings Arcane Intellect. It's not much else. I think the Balefire Bolt change is largely irrelevant. I don't think it'll end up being anything too crazy. They haven't actually increased the coefficients on it. It could be that ends up being interesting with ice shards, etc., but nothing too crazy. The Brain Freeze is interesting because they want to make Frost more real, and especially it was before they fixed Frozen Orb. Frozen Orb was bugged apparently, and it was lasting way longer, or there was some other issue with it. I forget. I was actually in LA during the first round of PTR, so I didn't get the chance to get my hands on it for too long, but I was doing a lot of reading on it. And it looked hilariously strong. A little less so now though, so that's a bit disappointing to see.
Well,
so
do you think? So I have a question as a Mage noob.
Sure.
Do you think that Molten Core is going to have resistances?
I would hope not. I would hope not
in the higher heats.
I would hope not. I would really, really, really hope that they were not going to do that, because that restricts a mode of play in a short seasonal mode, and then you'll have that same issue if they carry it forward. A lot of dragons are straight up immune to fire. And so if that's the case, maybe that's why we're seeing the Brain Freeze buff, because mages are essentially going to be forced to be Frost. I think if they are forced to be Frost, it's fine though. I think Frost is actually a much more interesting and dynamic spec than Fire in this version of the game, especially if they're going to nerf the Overheat as much as they are. I think Overheat's a bit too much. I think Brain Freeze should be tuned potentially even higher. I think there's some risk in PvP, though, for it to be an issue. So I look forward to seeing if that's the case. I do wish that they would buff Temporal Anomaly. I think that they want some defensive utility on Mage, and if you're going to make it weaker in terms of damage than other classes, that's okay. Amp up its utility a bit. We had this conversation, Aggrend had that discussion of utility and why Shadow Priest might look a little bit weaker because of everything else that it brings. If you're going to have that head slot rune on Mage, make Temporal Anomaly worthwhile. Make it work like an orb where it stops and make the shield a bit bigger, give it some coefficients, make it a little bit more productive. Maybe make it raid wide, God forbid. That actually would be broken. But even make it a little bit stronger. Make it a little bit stronger because it is party wide. It has these limitations. Give them a little bit more utility so they can look well there, because that's a slot where Hotstreak is there. It's competing for Hotstreak. If you're going to have mages on Frost and they can have a little bit more utility, and then when Fire is scaled up, they can really come back in and they don't need the utility because they're really just blasting. That's great. I think that's a good balance. Mage Healer has always felt good. People don't play it because they're weird and bad. But
I'll confirm that. Mage Healer scares the fuck out of me, even as a healer fan, because it seems complicated.
Fucking fun. It is the most fun healer ever made. The person who made it is a goddamn genius. I want to shake his hand. I want to kiss him on the mouth. It is a beautiful, beautiful class. It has so much going on with it, and it's a lot of simple stuff in intertwining, and especially with this change, what they've done is they moved they made rewind time. I believe they put it on your wrists now, and Arcane Mage didn't have a really good wrist rune other than displacement. Sucks they can't use displacement there, but then you have an actual choice, right? There might be some fights where displacement is very, very powerful, or some fights where you really, really want to use rewind. But rewind, especially if they make the set from tier 1 work well with it. Currently, I think it's a bit of a swing and a miss. Currently, it's when Rejuve heals, but a lot of time you're not actually healing with Rejuve at all. You're just canceling it almost immediately or after 1 tick. I think either if they increase the refund there or just make it on cast of Rejuve, it'll be interesting. But having rewind time in your toolkit, having Arcane Barrage added, it was a big, big pain point for Mage, not being able to move pretty much at all and deal any arcane damage. And you have that now in your ballpark. You have a lot more options sort of flowing throughout, and there's some potential there for using Balefire now as a healer Mage. With some other synergies, if it's doing more damage, to have this sort of like burn phase. So I think that you're going to have some interesting dynamics. I think Healer Mage is in a really, really great place. It is infinitely more complicated now with the change to advanced warding. It is the most complicated healer I think that they have ever made. Obviously in Classic, it rivals retail healers in complexity.
But that's my point. That's my point, North. And I'm not like trying to shit on the Healing Mage. I want to try it. I want to play it, but my God, it like I said, on paper, I read these tooltips and be like, bro,
you've got to love Mage.
That feels like that feels like a retail class, and I'm like, I just want like me hit heal, fucking bar go up. You know what I mean? Like,
I like that they've moved away from that. I like that it's a unique thing. It is a thing for if someone randomly loves Mage and also loves being a support player and loves playing for the team and loves healing at the same time. If they love those fantasies side by side, and I do. Like that is it feels like a thing that is tailor-made to my interests, and so that's part of why I love it so much. It is such a wonderful thing because it plays off of Atonement in a really cool way, because that's essentially how it was designed around Atonement. But then you have
that's the bizarre thing though, North, because like I am besotted with my Atonement Priest in Kata. I can't stop playing it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Like doing damage to heal fucking all
Here's
that
the thing.
stuff.
Here's the thing then. If you're cool with it, right? I'll give you this piece of advice then. The only thing that's difficult, it's not difficult, right? The only really things going on with Arcane Mage are, hey, spam your Arcane Blast, right? Spam your Arcane Blast. At the end of those Arcane Blasts, batch in your rejuves, right? And that's the bulk of your rotation. It's not that complicated. It's a little bit of extra steps. Yeah, it's you aren't just smiting and holy firing. You are Arcane Blasting and then hitting the rejuve at the end of it, and you're stacking it up and you can dump them out, but you just mass rejuving with that. The only caveats there are you can cook up, if you think there's going to be healing that really matters, burst healing that you need, you can cook up a chronostatic, right? And now you're going to be able to use your wards and your mana shield on other people. Those are going to be pretty tough calls to use, though, because those are going to be extremely expensive in terms of their cost. Not the Fire Ward and the Frost Ward, but those have long cooldowns. So you're going to be able to Fire Ward pretty regularly throughout MC, and that'll provide a lot of value. But now you essentially have a no cooldown physical damage shield that you can just do, but you can use it at the cost of your own mana. So the ultimate fantasy of I am a mage and I have my mana is power, and my mana is power to support the raid now, is real and alive. And I think that is so fucking interesting. It's so it is IMO, it's peak mage. It's so fucking cool. It's really cool when you get into it, but you have to love it. You have to want to live and breathe it, because there's a lot of things going on where you want to batch the Arcane Blast at the end of the rejuve or at the end of the arcane missiles, because a lot of times you want to cook up a big missile barrage into it. But once you get playing it and once you get used to it, it is so much fun. It plays, I think, honestly, very seamlessly, and that's without having rewind, and that's without having arcane barrage and being able to rewind. I feel like the fantasy of Mage is so preserved by healer, and I think that it is, especially with rewind. I think rewind, it was a great decision for them to try and emphasize that in the kit. It is a really, really, really cool spell, and it puts a lot of immediate player agency forward in a way that feels really, really good when you can do it right. So I think and even without those things, even when you're not running at absolute full capacity, if you want to just sit there and spam chronostatics on people, it's not bad.
Okay.
It's not bad, even if you do it simply. Even if you do it simply, you don't play it to the absolute full extent. But I can, in certain fights, what I'll be doing, and it's crazy. It's crazy that you can do this, and obviously it's the mana fantasy. I can single rejuve 10 people and then mass rejuve 2 other groups and keep them indefinitely up. And so obviously that's more or less a 15-second window. But there's a 15-second window where we got the entire raid got blooded on Shade of Aranicus. or not Shade of Arancus, the boss after Avatar of Fakar, and I was solo healing the entire raid through the most damage that could occur throughout the raid, ever. Like people were just stacked up, just blasting each other, and I was just sitting there burning the hell out of the boss, and it was beautiful because I didn't have the buff on me. Pretty much everyone else had it because I was standing out, and so I wasn't pushed back there. But even with those other changes, if we can have Arcane Barrage now on our runes, we're going to have so much more available to us, and the fantasy of being able to like sort of weave your magics throughout the raid in a defensive way. It's peak. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm yapping.
It sounds fun. You're selling me. I mean, fuck, I was daydreaming just yesterday about Shadow Priest maybe being able to do a little bit of light healing on the side in phase 4, but I don't know if it's going to be a thing. But like, like when our friend Ruggs was trying to fucking build up the heal hands thing in Wrath, I'm sort of looking at Shadow Priest in SoD going like, oh, is there a funky way I can heal a dungeon when I get some gear as I don't think it's going
to be funky. I think that's going to be a big thing. I think that you will want like the vamp into the 2 set, allowing you to use flash heal. I hope you've seen that in shadow form. And so I think that you will have that option to you, especially because normally maybe that's a mana concern, but now you have that.
Now you've got the mana and now you've got the flash heal.
Yeah, I think it'll be a big thing. I think that they will really lean into their role as, hey, this is not a main healer, this is a support healer, and it's a damn good one, right? Like it's the DPS flex, and I think especially for the harder content here. So I would encourage you, hey, maybe engage with some of that harder content because I think it's going to be extremely well tailored to Shadow Priest and their and what they're good at. We're planning on running quite a few of them.
Yeah, I would love that, to have like reasons to heal as a Shadow Priest. I don't know. That's good for me.
Well,
It's peak.
Yeah, you're gonna have your group that you're vampiric embracing on, and then flash healing to keep your group up in certain situations.
I can't believe they've killed heal hands
and shielding
at the same time.
They killed heal hands.
Don't even.
Yeah, the
Shaman has enough, man. Shaman has enough. Okay,
Shamans can
simmer
about that mail.
Shamans can simmer the fuck down. They have eaten for far. Even Aggrend said it. They have had far too much for far too long. The shamans must die. Now is the time of the paladin. Age of the paladin has begun.
Fucking in the bin.
Ashbringer rising up.
Shaman got nothing for 20 years, then they got something for 4 months, and now they can go back to having nothing.
Agreed. You need to keep the shaman. It's like me. You can't let me keep going off. You can't let the shamans have fun because everyone else will be murdered.
Oh my!
Right? You cannot let the lightning must be quelled.
Manny,
they've lost their hand of rag. What else?
What's that, Mandalore?
They've lost their hand of rag. What?
They have lost their hand of rag to the druids, haven't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's assuming that's the only version of Hand of Rag that there's going to be.
Right. Okay.
We've seen where iconic items now get a second version.
I don't know. I think that's the version. But
with the current stat thing, is it just that the shamans, right? Like they just want to dual wield. They really don't want Hand of Rag. Is that their meme?
Two hand is coming close to it. I think some sims are even saying it's better, but now that it's feral attack power, it's
but if it's feral attack power, right? Like you just eat the fuck the ferals, man. Just take the fucking Hand of Rag. It's sick. It's orange.
That's why I've leveled a feral to go along with my shaman. So now I have.
He just wants the orange real bad.
Yeah,
I am so the use case now of the rogue Thunder Fury is chef's kiss. I
think they've it's an amazing thing for them, and they've got obviously not just a great case, but almost the best case now. I don't know,
the best case.
Yeah,
the best case. Yeah,
unless they make a warlock version of it.
Oh man, I can't wait to see the rogue.
I hope they make a special warlock weapon. I hope it's not actually Thunder
Mike,
Fury.
you rolled a rogue in the wrong version of fucking WoW for your Thunder Fury. Manny, can I get your takes just quickly, because I've been meaning to talk to you for so long and we've just missed each other like ships in the night for the last couple of weeks. All these class changes on PTR, just in relation to fucking everything. What are some of your favorites? What are hits? What are misses in your mind?
Well, I'll start with the one I just mentioned. I'm really sad that they killed heal hands, or just the healing aspect of Maelstrom Weapon. I think that's a huge miss. I completely understand the need to nerf Shaman's top end damage because it was out of control for what they provide and what they do as a class, as an entirety. It was absolutely insane. But what was really nice about playing a shaman enhanced specifically with the added mental dexterity is that you could run a completely support, like you're saying with the Shadow Priest, you could flash heal. Like you could spend your Maelstrom procs on healing. You could run Riptide if you wanted to, and I'll add additional healing, instant cast healing, and still deal pretty respectable damage. That was really fun. It was really good for solo play as well. But it was a trade-off. It was an absolute trade, and that's kind of what I feel makes good class design. Is that if you're choosing one avenue, you're foregoing another, and that was an aspect that I thought was really good about Enhanced Shaman. And like they've nerfed mental dexterity quite a bit, which I think is warranted. But them completely removing the option to heal with your Maelstrom stacks, as well as giving you no healing power from your attack power to spell damage conversion. I think that's kind of removing a really cool aspect of Shaman play. So that one was definitely something that
anything
that
outside of
jumped out at me.
Shaman that you saw that you liked or hated?
I like the idea of Shield Slam, making a comeback for Warriors, especially if you're looking at like Glad Stance PvP. I think that looks kind of cool. I also think people are vastly underselling Meat Hook. I know, like
I agree.
It was I think that was a talking point, a little bit, but like Death Grip is insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like you're looking at AV next phase too. Like in these, like you're going to be throwing up walls of AOE. You're going to have trap launcher, frost traps everywhere. That's going to drive me insane too. Entrapment hunters are just going to be like the worst things you've ever encountered in your life.
Welcome to the
But then you're
jungle,
going to have
baby.
the warriors, and your warriors are going to make a difference in every single team fight, whether they're able to strategically hook people in, and you can secure kills as a team with Meat Hook, and that's going to be probably the single biggest utility, maybe outside of those trap launchers, entrapment hunters. So I think that was also a massive one. The other thing that I don't like, but I completely understand why they did it, and I hope that if this is just kind of an elaborate beta test for a real Classic Plus, I hope they take a look at this again, is the AoE cap stuff for tanks. I loved Classic tanking, how hard you had to work to generate AoE threat, and when you had a good tank who was able to do it, like they were worth their weight in gold. I don't love it when every class has just all the tools to generate all the AoE threat,
right,
and generate it immediately to where everyone can just go full blast AoE immediately. Doesn't matter the tank. It makes dungeons so much less interesting. It makes like tanking in general much less interesting. You don't have to work for anything. You just press AoE button now. Press single target.
So what do you
button
make of their reasoning though, that obviously they said they may have gone a bit nuts with giving the DPS their AoE abilities, and now had to balance that with the tanks being able to hold that threat?
Absolutely. No, that's what I mean. Like I completely understand why they did it. I just hope that it's not, I don't know. Like I loved, as a warrior, pulling suppression room, having all the tricks, having the engineering, having the immolation the immolation oil, having the reflect damage trinket, like the Nagler, like all these little items with reflect damage on it, so you could generate that AoE threat to let your AoE DPS go ham. And I think something's lost when you've got like the Wrath style tanks where it's just like gather it all up, AoE down, gather it all up, AoE down. And I think that also ties in with stuff like Phantom Knives and all the AoE tools given to, every class can AoE now, Cat's Wipe, whatever it might be. I think that's trending a little far towards homogenization when you're looking at classic class design. But I understand that we're neck deep in SoD, and I don't know. I guess maybe it was necessary at the point we're at. But if there ever is something like a Classic Plus in the future, I hope they take a look at that again and revisit.
Very good.
Manny, I totally agree with you on the tanking. I'm a long-time tank player, and I much prefer the vanilla and TBC version of tanking versus the Wrath version.
Yeah, TBC Prot Warrior was some of the most fun I had tanking dungeons. Even though it sucked, like objectively sucked, it was a lot of fun when you could pull off a big AoE pull, time the spell reflect just right, get everything gathered up on you and let your DPS AoE. Maybe not, you might not be able to get the full Seed of Corruption Warlocks going ballistic, but
Don't
it was
forget the
rewarding
Bengay
gameplay.
on your hand after every raid night.
Yeah, that's true. It was rewarding gameplay, but I don't know. Like Wrath, Prot Warrior, super fun to play, but it gets a little samey after a while, and it feels a little too easy.
Yeah, I'm saying even from the Prot Paladin perspective, TBC, you had less tools in your toolkit as a Prot Paladin, but I actually found the tanking to be more enjoyable, more fun. Almost probably in the entire version of Burning Crusade, I looked at a DPS meter maybe a handful of times because I was glued to threat meter and trying to keep Fury Warriors off my ass.
But even that was like, there was a lot of little interesting things with your gearing, right, for Prot Paladins, because you had to really balance your survivability, your spell power, your, you know, like, and then like there were certain fights where you'd go block value instead, right? Like you'd look at Morgrib, something like that. So I think when you make tanks OP, like they kind of are right now, you lose a lot of the interest, like the interesting things that make tanking fun, that really draw people into tanking. And if you're looking at, you know, macro, we want people running 5-mans. I don't think making tanking super face roll is the way you're going to get more people to want to play tanks over and over again in dungeons. I could be wrong. There might be, you know, there's obviously something for, you know, not having to have sweat drip on your keyboard to effectively tank a quick 5-man, but I don't know, just my kind of 2 cents on what I've seen so far.
I think it's difficult for them though when they've added these other tanks to like have them be viable without these things, because like when you make Paladin viable, right, like when you make Paladin viable and Paladin has Consecrate and has Hammer of Righteousness, and maybe they leaned into this too much, but even where, you know, where Consecration exists and that they can keep this AoE threat and that they have the Reflect with Holy Shield, I think that you're creating a situation which is, hey, we're just going to bring Paladin for pretty much everything because a lot of things boil down to AoE threat. So I think that they've out-teched themselves with it because they have made AoE really, really super relevant to most classes, and it didn't used to be pretty much only Mage could AoE, and then Mage had its own minigame where it was like, hey, you know, like get bops on the mages, get lips on the mages, you know, make sure that they have solutions to the threat that they're going to be having. And I thought that was an interesting minigame, but it didn't exist for pretty much anyone else, right? Like it was pretty much only Mage that had to deal with that.
Yeah, that or the Warrior with the bop AoE taunt or something. Yeah,
exactly. So you had solutions for it, and you'll still have the solutions for it now. But I think especially with what they've been doing with Rogue, I think giving Rogue its sort of angle to, hey, this will, right, like this, it looks really, really strong as an AoE tank now, and I think that leans into Rogue effectively. I think that is a really cool identity for Rogue, that it's, you know, it's now this AoE sort of, you know, like I'm throwing blades everywhere, you know, very Diablo-esque even sort of Rogue tank that will work. I think that it works for the class fantasy because they've been so weak for so long, and I think that there are very few options for making them stronger that wouldn't be giving them an AoE ability, right, to compare them to and you know, bring them in line with other tanks because of how weak Shuriken Toss was, right? So I think
and in Classic, you had 2 big struggles. You had finding a healer for a dungeon and finding a tank for a dungeon, because there were only 2 classes that could tank. That was Bear Druid and Warrior for the most part. Yeah, you just didn't have the threat, the taunt, the added utility from the other classes like Paladin and Shaman and Rogue. Now they've solved the tank availability issue. Yeah,
which is a good thing.
And you don't want people spending 4 hours in a dungeon doing onesie twosie CC pools anymore.
Not in classic dungeons, not in fucking classic dungeons, but with their size. Guys,
you for sure wouldn't, and I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be really fun. I think people will find, because like I'm leveling Rogue Tank specifically for that reason. I think it'll be really, really fun to just, you know, kind of like
here you all come. The flavor of the month, where fucking Ubiquitous and I have played Rogue Tank the whole time through the tough times, and now all you fucking Johnny come latelys want to get on the train.
I've had a Rogue leveled. It's just trash, dog. I don't play trash. I don't live in the dumpster. My bad. I'm not from Sesame Street. You know, it is what it is.
Oh my god!
What I find interesting about tanking is like when tanks are good at different things, and if you want to be a good tank player, I think you should be able to play multiple things. So like having Rogue Tank be good AoE, then like your tank player, maybe they have a Rogue and they have a Feral Druid for like some single target stuff or something like that. Like I kind of like that a little bit. completely understand that there's so many
Really hard
people
to
that are like
balance, though, right?
solo classers. Yeah, for sure. And like if you want to play, say, tank shaman, and that's all you want to play. Like if you're looking at ST, you know, like great AoE tank, horrible single target tank, like miserable experience. So, you know, and it's probably the same for others. You know, rogue, good single target tank, horrible AoE tank currently. So they got to give them something. But I just think it's gone a little bit of a bridge too far in the case of tanks and in the case of DPS and their ability to AoE as well.
Guys,
Right,
we might
but,
finish
in
us off,
Raid,
Watered. I'm going to wrap it up after this.
All right, in Raid, it's going to come down to fire resist and survivability and threat management, and how do you balance those three, especially in Molten Core. So there might be situations where certain classes just are not equipped to handle certain fights reliably.
All right, guys.
So we can't just say that every tank is going to be OP next phase.
I'm going to wrap us up there, because otherwise we're going to have a fucking 6-hour podcast this week for everyone to listen to, because stay tuned for part 2 on Friday night, everyone. We're going to do, you'll like this one, North. We're going to do an Aggrend and Zirene tweet review, I think. So that'll be a bit of fun. There's been some really juicy information going out there on Twitter in regards to the philosophy behind some of these class changes and class design, specifically in regard to things like Priest and Hunter. So that'll be a lot of fun to walk through, where, you know, people don't always get the information from Twitter, from Aggrend. And yes, it is a bit of a shame that not all this stuff is out there on the forums and whatnot. It doesn't really bother me that much, because I have Twitter and I read this shit. But, we'll try and get it out there on the podcast so more of you guys can hear from the mouths of the devs some of the thinking that they go through when redesigning these classes or making classes for SoD. So stay tuned for that one, guys. We'll also have to talk about some of the new PTR changes. Like, fuck, look at what they did with Hunter today. I mean, it is an epic rewrite of this class, particularly for melee hunters, like mostly for melee hunters. It has me absolutely salivating. I decided to re-roll basically a melee hunter 2 weeks ago, and
iconic class weapons updated in Season of Discovery, posted 1 minute ago. Benediction and Rock Delar.
Oh, talk to me. What do we got? Link me, baby. Link me up.
It's just on the front page about here. I'm posting it in the podcast town hall. We got to talk about this before we go. Let's look. Calls down anathema. We still have benediction, increases healing done by 112. That's crazy.
112?
Wait, there's 100. Well, that's not even that much more. It was
not much more.
That's not much
it was 106 in the original version. It was 106.
Yeah, but what other stats did they increase?
They didn't increase a whole lot. They didn't increase a whole lot, right? Like it has basically the same stuff. It's not that much better.
No, it's like it's
Anathema
7 or 8%
is only
increase.
6 better. It has a 1% crit chance on Anathema instead of the 7 mana per 5. Rock Delar is basically the same. It's a bit slower than it was before, which is I think a wanted change. And Loc Delar is
got 30 AP
now.
No, wait, sorry.
45 will fighting demon, same thing. You know, they add 30 AP.
He got 30 AP.
They added 30 AP to it. They've changed the int on it to Agi. Yeah, they've changed the int on it to Agi, so it's a bit better. And then also, there's a Whistle of the Beast. Something in the request line has been discovered that likely requests from the same chain. Increase your pet armor by 10%,
For BM
max
hunters.
health by 3%, damage dealt by pet by 3%, pest strike by 2%. Use your pet's next attack is guaranteed to be a critical strike if it's capable of striking critically.
Oh no!
Interesting.
Here come the lightning breaths again.
True, the lightning breaths are returning. That's interesting. That's interesting.
I don't know if anybody said this earlier, but Aggrend's already responded about the 2-week lockout thing.
Oh yeah. He said they're looking at it, right?
Yep, so acknowledged it and said that
that's right.
There would probably be some more conversations about it.
Yeah, we talked about that.
They also posted some, and obviously we won't have a chance to go over all this. They posted. It looks like the rank 10 gear. So it looks like that's now posted. That's data mined. That's available to us now, so we can look at that, as well as changes to some of the tier stuff. I don't know if any of this was unknown. I think it's showing some Dark Mantle stuff, showing Band of the Beach, Molten Skull, so just adjustments and additions of new items.
Okay. Yeah, there's a fucking whole podcast just in what they've done to hunters. It's going to be. Look, I'm really excited for Phase 4, guys. If you can't tell, I think there's a lot going on. It's going to be really cool. I'm very excited that I'm playing Hunter, given how much fucking love and attention they're giving that one now. But yeah, guys, we'll wind it up there, and I'll go watch my fucking replay of the debate now, have some lunch and everything. And I can't thank you guys enough for being here this whole time, and it's been a great session sitting down with you all again. I'll see you all on Friday night. North, mate, always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Gally, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Manny, you're the best, mate. We got to do this more often.
Of course, yeah. I'll try to clear my schedule next time. And I do just want to throw out there as one last thing, kind of just for all those who are skeptical, there's some stuff that people might like, might not like. Just play the game. Like, have fun, play the game, play it how you can play it. I think this is going to be awesome. Give it a chance. That's all I have to say.
I agree. Don't I'm big on this whole and that's this is why I've been cracking the shits at people on Twitter and everything. Like, this fucking stupid WoW player mentality of anything that doesn't have a billion players is a shit game and you should not give it your attention. It's just like, shut the fuck up. Fucking try it out. Make your own minds up. Be autonomous. Like, see if it's fun. And, this whole, getting back into this whole, oh, it's a dead server if it doesn't have 10,000 people on it. Like, shut the fuck up, you fucking idiots. Just play the game. And, yeah, anyway, I'm ranting.
Yeah, that and don't get caught up in the rat race. Don't get caught up in the need to do this, forced to do that. I think that rhetoric is nonsense.
Yeah.
And I think you can have a blast with this game in a whole bunch of different ways.
And the Aussies can laugh. The Aussies can laugh
sword?
at me as
Have you
well. Sorry, wait 1 second. Now, the Aussies can laugh at me as well, as I'm like, you don't have to play with 10,000 people, but I'm also like, I'm looking at the Aussie server going, oh, I don't know about this one. Like I said, you don't have to have too many, but you also have to be wary of having too few. But we'll see what happens. North, you were saying something?
The blacksmithing looks like has a BOP item now created by a replaceable. I don't know if we saw this before, but Shadow Flame Sword, which causes Blade Flurry to make you ignore 2,000 of your target's armor. It's an fast offhand sword, 9 strength, 11. I'm so hyped for Rogue, man. I'm Rogue main this phase. This is sick. Fuck Mage Healer. I'm a Rogue tank. Let's go.
God. All right. Fair enough. Forded, thanks so much for being here, mate.
Dude, it was awesome listening in and being able to chime in every once in a while.
Thanks, man. Red, it was so great to get you involved.
Thank you for having me.
All good, man. And Mandalore, if we still got you, mate, thanks for calling in from fucking way out west or wherever you are. We appreciate it.
Middle bumfuck nowhere. Yeah. No, cheers for having us, boys. Good having a chat.
Cheers, mate. All right, guys. We'll see you Friday. North, I'll talk to you after this, mate.
Sure.
All right, see you guys.